So guys, finally our boys Sei-June and the solo farmer are back. On the occasion of Christmas, I would like to say Merry Christmas to all of you. Please hit subscribe because we are going to have fun once again. Now, let us begin the video. We see that the dragon lady is extremely tense, deeply regretting her decision as she walks back and forth through the library. No matter how much she thinks about it, sending Sei-June to the 67th floor was a mistake. She wonders how long a tower farmer can hold out against those locusts, because they are becoming more dangerous with every passing second. Suddenly, the dragon lady's crystal ball starts glowing red. A system notification appears, asking Dragon Lady Eileen whether she wants to lift the block. She taps yes. We see that it is her grandpa, Kaiser, who immediately starts begging in front of Eileen, telling her that he was wrong and asking for forgiveness. He pleads with her to never block him again. Meanwhile, Dragon Lady Eileen is still processing everything. We get a recap of the previous events, how Sei-June went to the 67th floor as a mid-manager to deal with the locusts, and whether he will be all right. Even though Dragon Lady Eileen is a tower administrator, she is unable to help him, which deeply upsets her. Kaiser notices this and feels disappointed that he cannot help her either. Suddenly, Kaiser realizes something and tells Eileen not to worry at all. He reminds her that Sei-June is the best solo farmer. He entered the Black Tower on his own and survived the 99th floor using nothing but his bare hands, an achievement impressive even to mighty dragons. He influenced countless beings and turned them into his comrades so he could grow faster than anyone else. Above all, Sei-June is the representative of the Black Dragon, chosen by none other than Eileen herself. So how could the Dragon Lady doubt her own judgment? As the scene shifts, we see Sei-June eating detoxifying green onions while Theo attacks multiple purple locusts, chewing on green onions at the same time. Grandpa Kaiser tells Eileen that Sei-June will be just fine because he is the best solo farmer the tower has ever seen. We see Sei-June using his dagger and scythe to cut down everything in his path. The scene shifts back again, showing our lucky golden cat, Theo, wondering what Sei-June would have done if Theo had not packed an extra bunch of detoxifying green onions in his bag. Sei-June simply smiles, gives a thumbs up, and tells manager Theo that he did a great job. Meanwhile, the rabbit princess is casting magic to protect everyone and deflect the locusts. She knows that red locusts are already dangerous, but now they have turned purple, meaning the locust population on the 67th floor has increased even more. She uses her water attribute skills and fires a water cannon, blasting the locusts away. A system notification pops up, informing Sei-June that Guardian Princess and Guardian Theo have defeated a purple locust. Sei-June gains 50% of the experience earned by both of them. Now Sei-June looks at the situation more calmly, realizing that this might actually be an incredible opportunity to level up. We see Baby Bear, who is no longer a baby, returning to his giant form with his trusty wooden weapon, slamming it down on the purple locusts. Even Sei-June throws his axe like Thor and recalls it back. Suddenly, Sei-June is ambushed by a purple locust. Theo panics, thinking that Chairman Park is in danger. However, Sei-June reveals another trick. The flame of companionship emerges and engulfs him, forming a protective armor around his body. He smiles and tells Theo that he is fine, as multiple purple locusts are reduced to smithereens. Theo and the rabbit princess are both shocked. Sei-June explains that before coming to the 67th floor, the trustee flame granted him the flame of protection and friendship, so he is not the weakest anymore. Baby Bear happily calls Sei-June his dad, proud of how reliable he is in battle. Even the rabbit princess realizes that if the Black Dragon had been in the Red Ribbon Kingdom in the past, things might have turned out very differently. However, Sei-June turns serious and tells everyone that even so, there are simply too many purple locusts. Defeating them alone will not be possible. We see a massive swarm of purple locusts engulf a tower-like structure from top to bottom, dissolving it in seconds. Sei-June and the others continue fighting relentlessly. Theo knows they are getting exhausted, and they may run out of detoxifying green onions soon. Even the warrior rabbit, despite being the strongest warrior of the rabbit clan, is starting to feel the strain. Sei-June realized that everyone was getting tired. Baby Bear was barely holding on, relying on his immense strength. Sei-June wore a disappointed expression, knowing that if the Minotaurs had been there to protect them, things would have been different. or if Iona the wizard head were present, the situation would improve drastically. Suddenly, something clicked. Sei-June smiled, a glimmer of hope shining in his eyes. He realized that he could bring Iona there right now. He took out the interdimensional key he had obtained when he rescued Bat-Bat. Just as multiple purple locusts rushed toward him, he immediately activated the key, summoning a dimensional portal. He began pounding on the gate, calling for Iona to open it. This shocked the hamster wizard, who opened the gate with a frantic expression, wondering what was going on. At first, she thought Sei-June needed the room and told him that the upgrade was almost complete. However, she quickly realized something was wrong as the air outside grew increasingly toxic. Sei-June told her that he needed her help. Before Sei-June could explain further, Iona herself noticed the purple locusts swarming across the forest. The tall structure nearby had already been destroyed. The purple locusts soon noticed the wizard head as well, viewing her as their next prey. But Iona did not back down. Her expression turned serious, quite intense for a hamster. She raised her staff and began channeling lightning energy, which glowed purple. As her magic staff fully charged, she unleashed Giga Lightning. The entire sky turned purple with lightning, destroying countless purple locusts as they exploded like firecrackers. Even Sei-June was shocked by the sheer power the small hamster possessed. Baby Bear cheered excitedly at the spectacle, along with the other creatures. The rabbit princess smiled brightly, while the warrior rabbit observed silently. Theo, unlike ordinary cats, was completely captivated by the scene unfolding before him. As the scene shifts, Sei-June turns back toward the dimensional gate as Iona descends from the sky. Purple locusts continue to be blown into smithereens by the lightning strikes, leaving Sei-June in awe. A system notification appears, informing Sei-June that the system has been updated. The mid-manager is now tasked with exterminating the purple locusts on the 67th floor of the tower. Out of 700 million purple locusts, 50,000 have been defeated, granting Sei-June 3 million experience points and 50,000 tower coins. Failure will result in Sei-June being unable to return to their original location until the quest is complete. Sei-June is shocked, not only by the massive experience gain, but also by the realization that 700 million purple locusts still remain. Baby Bear returns to his normal size, and everyone stares at the system window, unsure of what to do next. Iona reassures them, explaining that once the numbers decrease, the purple locusts will revert back to red locusts, making them easier to defeat. However, due to the toxic air, Iona begins to look pale and suddenly collapses. Before she can hit the ground, Theo leaps forward and catches her, gently placing her near the gate. He tells Iona that since she was affected by locust poison, she should eat a detoxifying green onion immediately. Under the influence of the hallucinating poison, Theo appears even more impressive in Iona's eyes. She compliments him for his incredible magic and expresses relief that they are on the same side. As Iona bites into a chunk of detoxifying green onion like a cute little hamster, she blushes intensely at the praise. Meanwhile, the warrior rabbit scans the surroundings and informs Sei-June that he no longer senses any locust presence nearby. Sei-June feels relieved and decides that they should take a break inside the dimensional space he unlocked. As the scene shifts, the warrior rabbit, Baby Bear, and the rabbit princess enter the dimensional space, their eyes sparkling with amazement. When Sei-June enters with Theo and Iona, he is mesmerized by the cozy atmosphere. The dimensional space has transformed into a place perfectly suited for Christmas. Sei-June compliments Iona on how beautifully she decorated the place. The hamster smirks and tells Sei-June that a simple task like this is easy for her. At that moment, Sei-June gets another idea. He realizes that if he uses the dimensional space permanently, he could summon his comrades anytime, without even designating them as subordinates. This was truly a game-changing idea, as Sei-June watched all the creatures laughing and playing together. Suddenly, he noticed that Baby Bear was eating something and wondered what it was. Baby Bear immediately showed him a piece of meat and told Sei-June that the locusts struck by the lightning attack were actually delicious. However, when everyone else smelled it, it did not seem good at all. Sei-June made a strange face, and even Theo wanted to throw it away, knowing it did not look like something they should eat. But as the foul smell faded, Sei-June realized that the scent beneath it was similar to chicken. He suddenly remembered that back on Earth, locusts were often said to taste like chicken. Sei-June immediately bowed in front of Yona, asking whether she could modify the small brazier to make it do something more. As the scene shifts outside the dimensional space, the environment is unpleasant. However, inside the space, a delicious aroma fills the air. Even Sei-June starts drooling along with Baby Bear, realizing that what they had done was completely insane. The brazier had been modified into a roaster, with multiple pieces of locust meat skewered around it, cooking slowly. Juices dripped down as the meat roasted, releasing an incredibly appetizing scent. Baby Bear watched happily. A system notification appeared, informing Sei-June that the achievement, first to cook roasted purple locust in the tower, had been unlocked. It was registered under cooking level 4, with proficiency slightly increased. As the locust meat continued to roast, the system announced that a special effect had been applied due to Sei-June's cooking level. The recipe, stuffing purple locusts with detoxifying green onions and roasting them over indirect heat, made the meat lean and savory. Because of skillful cooking, both the meat and green onions were perfectly cooked, resulting in a tender texture and excellent taste. The process also detoxified the poison in the meat, granting low-level poison resistance to anyone who ate it. This dish was rated C+ grade. When Sei-June lifted one skewer, he was shocked by the sheer size of the meat. He told all the cute monsters to try it, assuring them that it was fully cooked. Still, Theo found it unsettling. Even though it smelled good, roasting the entire body looked a bit disgusting. Baby Bear seized the opportunity and immediately grabbed the whole piece, telling Theo that he would eat it no matter what. Sei-June calmly scolded Baby Bear, warning him that it would be hot, but the bear did not care. He tossed it into the air to cool it down, then blew on it with his mouth. The shell cracked without breaking apart, revealing soft, tender meat inside. The juicy meat melted in his mouth and tasted heavenly. Baby Bear enjoyed it immensely and started gulping it down at an incredible speed. Thea stared in disbelief, wondering how the bear could eat something that had looked so nasty moments ago. But soon, even Theo started drooling, and the other monsters began wondering if they should try it too. Sei-June walked to the roaster and pulled out another skewer, telling everyone that there was plenty to eat and that they should eat slowly and enjoy it. He told them not to be shy and to ask for more whenever they wanted. The cute creatures accepted the food as if they were receiving blessings from heaven. As they ate, Sei-June finally took a bite himself. After an entire year and such a long break, the taste filled him with bliss. Everyone was mesmerized, eating again and again. Sei-June realized that the flavor was exactly like the roasted chicken he used to eat back home. But as the scene shifts back to the dimensional gate, we see that the delicious aroma has attracted various monsters outside. 3 peculiar monsters with yellow, blue, and red eyes appear near the dimensional entrance, believing that whatever was happening inside was completely unforgivable. The scene shifts back inside the dimensional space, where we see every monster sleeping cutely on top of one another. Sei-June was also sleeping on a hanging bed, his mouth still drooling from the deliciousness of the food. However, Theo was trying to get out of the dimensional pocket. He had eaten too much and was so bloated that he could not even sleep. As he walked outside, we saw a shadow with a frog-like silhouette that came insanely close to Theo, ready to nab him and stuff him inside a jute bag. While Theo was contemplating whether he should go out for a walk, his head was suddenly covered with a bag. He screamed in a cute cat voice, wondering what was going on. It turned out to be a frog-like creature acting stealthy, accusing Theo of releasing the purple locusts in the Navia swamp. The frog believed it was because of the innocent golden cat, who was clueless about what was going on, that countless comrades had died. Theo's face was visible outside the jute bag as he was dragged through the water. He wondered what the frog was talking about, but the frog was not ready to listen at all. It declared that, starting with Theo, it would deal with the others too. Theo started crying and begged the frog to wait. He introduced himself as the tower's mid-level wandering merchant, the golden cat Theo. The frog refused to believe him, saying that a wandering merchant would never come this deep into such a dangerous location. However, the frog's companions stopped the kidnapper and told him to look at the cat's neck. When they did, they saw a silver wandering merchant badge, proving that Theo was telling the truth. Theo sat down innocently, shaking violently from fear after being kidnapped. The other 2 frogs wondered why a wandering merchant would be present near the Navia swamp. A third frog suggested that the badge might be fake or stolen. Hearing this, Theo frantically explained that it was a misunderstanding. He said they had come to eliminate the purple locusts and save the jewel frogs who were being hunted by them. Theo continued in a panicked voice, saying that he was a subordinate of the tower administrator, the one and only black dragon. He demanded that the frogs let him go immediately. The frogs were not ready to believe that the black dragon himself had come to save them. Theo reassured them and told them that if they did not believe him, they should try knocking on the door nearby, because the black dragon was sleeping inside and would prove that Theo was telling the truth. However, just imagining the giant black dragon made the frogs even more hesitant. They feared that the black dragon would become furious if his sleep was disturbed, especially after they had treated his subordinate this way. Theo stood there trembling while the frogs debated what to do, unwilling to open the gate. Theo wondered what he should do since the frogs refused to open the gate. At that moment, one of the frogs came up with a strange idea. They decided to take Theo to Lord Geron, who would know what to do. Theo asked who Geron was, but the frogs immediately tied him to a long bamboo stick. Two of them lifted the stick and carried the newly captured cat away. Theo screamed continuously, calling out for Chairman Park to come and save him. Inside the dimensional portal, Sei-June scratched his ear in his sleep, thinking it was just a mosquito whispering, and continued sleeping peacefully. Outside, Theo kept screaming for breath, shouting that he was a mid-level wandering merchant, the great Lord Theo, and ordering the frogs to put him down. Annoyed by the noise, the frogs threw him against a rock, assuming that such a noisy cat must be fake. After a moment, everyone calmed down. The green frog approached Theo, while the blue frog removed the bag from his head. The green frog apologized, explaining that they had lost too many comrades recently and had to be careful. Only then did Theo realize that the ones who kidnapped him were actually the ones they were meant to save, the jewel frogs themselves. There were 3 of them, one blue, one light green, and one dark green. Theo became furious. He had come to save the jewel frogs, yet they treated the great merchant like a captive. He scolded them angrily, asking if they had any idea how hard they had fought the purple locusts for the jewel frogs' safety. But suddenly, as Theo was scolding the 3 jewel frogs, a heavy voice echoed from the swamp, asking how he dared to act this way. Seeing this, Theo was shocked. He turned around and looked toward the swamp, which was bubbling violently as air surged from within. From the dirty swamp, a massive silhouette slowly emerged, a giant jewel frog. The creature spoke in a deep voice, demanding to know who dared scream so loudly and disturb his sleep. The giant jewel frog was so enormous that even the smaller jewel frogs trembled in fear for a moment. However, they quickly knelt down before the massive creature and addressed him as the king of the jewel frogs, the greatest and largest among their kind. Meanwhile, Lord Geron, the jewel frog king, was furious at Theo. He believed that Theo had continuously harmed him and their brethren. The swamp water surged violently, splashing everywhere and completely soaking the golden cat once again. Even though Theo desperately tried to dry himself, the impact was too great, and he was knocked unconscious on the spot. The blue jewel frog quickly spoke up, informing their lord, none other than Lord Geron, that they had captured the cat from the area with the strongest poison concentration in the swamp. Hearing this, the jewel frog king assumed that Theo was the one who had released the damn bugs into the swamp. Theo, however, did not even have the strength to speak. His body was completely drenched, every muscle aching terribly. On top of that, he was terrified and unable to put any strength into his limbs. But then Theo began acting. This was what the old Theo would have done. Suddenly filled with energy, he stood tall and spoke loudly before Lord Geron and the other jewel frogs, declaring that he was destined to become a great wandering merchant, and that he could not fall over something like this. Theo stood up proudly and introduced himself in his usual grand manner. This body belongs to the mid-level wandering merchant, the golden cat Theo. He demanded to know how Lord Geron dared kidnap, threaten, and treat him in such a manner without any proof. Theo declared that the price for this insult would definitely be paid by none other than the jewel frogs themselves. What Theo believed to be an intimidating display was nothing more than a joke to the jewel frog king. Lord Geron immediately raised one massive hand, intending to squash the tiny cat for his defiance, calling him an insignificant little thing. However, the dark green jewel frog stopped him. "Please wait, my lord," he said, explaining that according to Theo, he was a subordinate of the Black Dragon which could be useful to them. At this, even Lord Jaron began to sweat slightly. If the tower administrator Theo mentioned was truly the mighty Black Dragon, then the situation was far more serious than he initially thought. The three jewel frogs began speaking hurriedly to their king, explaining that if Theo was telling the truth, then harming him without reason could bring immense trouble upon them. They also reminded Lord Jaron that Theo had claimed to fight the dangerous purple locusts, creatures the jewel frogs themselves were helpless against. Perhaps Theo had really come to help them. Theo, however, was deeply annoyed. Not only did they doubt him, but now they were presenting his words to their lord as if the idea came from them. Still, for Lord Jaron, it was difficult to believe. Even he, the mighty Jewel Frog King, was currently recovering in the swamp after being poisoned by those bugs. There was no way a tiny cat could handle monsters that attacked everything they encountered. At that moment, Theo seized the opportunity. He opened his bag and spoke confidently. "If that's the case, then you should eat this." From Theo's magical bag emerged a beautifully roasted piece of purple locust meat. Theo explained with shining eyes that if Lord Jaron ate it, he would be completely fine. Technically, the effect came from the detoxifying green onion stuffed inside, but Theo did not bother explaining that detail. Before anyone could react, a massive tongue shot forward and grabbed the roasted meat. Lord Jaron ate it instantly, purely because it smelled delicious, without caring about its effects. Theo was stunned by the sheer size of the Jewel Frog King's tongue. The subordinates hesitated, wondering if their lord should really eat something just because it smelled good. Before they could even finish speaking, Lord Jaron began acting strangely. He felt something stirring inside his body. The Jewel Frogs feared something terrible was happening within their lord. Then suddenly, a sparkling light enveloped the massive frog. Blissful sounds escaped his mouth as rainbow-colored light filled the area. When the light finally faded, Lord Jaron spoke in a refreshed voice. His body felt incredibly light and rejuvenated. The once intimidating Jewel Frog King now looked completely different, giant yet slimy, adorned with multiple colors, with a radiant rainbow-colored jewel shining on his head. Moments ago, he was terrifying. Now he behaved like a spoiled puppy, eagerly asking what Theo had fed him because it was unbelievably delicious. The giant frog wondered what on earth the dish was because he felt that the toxins inside his body were completely gone. He asked Theo whether he had any more of it. The cat let out a devilish laugh, knowing that it was a good thing he was lucky. He had kept a few roasted locusts aside just in case. It was because of this food that the Jewel Frog King was finally willing to discuss a deal with him. As the scene shifts, we see multiple purple locusts attacking the lizard men. The lizard men were slicing them in half using their swordsmanship skills, but the moment the toxins touched their bodies, the situation became even more terrifying and impossible to handle. A massive purple locust swarm grew increasingly enraged, closing in on the lizard men who were barely holding their ground. We come to know that the leader of the lizard men guard was named Tamurao. All the other monsters on the 67th floor were confused, wondering why the numbers of locusts were not decreasing at all. They were also running out of detoxifying green onions, and the situation was spiraling out of control. Tamurao knew this could not continue any longer. As the purple swamp crept closer, only a few inches away, he wondered if this was truly the end for them. Suddenly, a massive familiar tongue appeared out of nowhere. In a single motion, it grabbed dozens of purple locusts and swallowed them whole. A thunderous burp followed, along with a satisfied voice commenting that the locusts were really delicious. It was none other than Lord Jaron, who had come to rescue the lizard men. Everyone was shocked to see the Jewel Frog King eating the poisonous locusts without suffering any ill effects. Lord Jaron then revealed his true power after being fully rejuvenated. He began spinning his tongue like a helicopter, sweeping through the swarm and devouring countless locusts without even pausing to digest them. As the frog continued consuming the locusts again and again, the lizard men realized that the Jewel Frog King was eating tens of thousands at a time. They stared in disbelief, wondering just who this overwhelming being truly was. Lord Jaron finally introduced himself. The multicolored jewel on his head gleamed brilliantly as he declared that he was the king of the jewel frogs and the master of Navia Swamp, Lord Jaron. Standing proudly atop the giant frog's head was a tiny golden cat, none other than a subordinate of the Black Dragon. He introduced himself as the mid-level wandering merchant, the golden cat Theo. We then learned that Theo had formed a contract with the Jewel Frog King earlier. Because of that contract, Lord Jaron was now assisting him by single-handedly resolving the Purple Locust crisis. Some of the subordinates hesitated, wondering whether it was truly safe for their lord to eat so many poisonous locusts at once. However, none of them dared to object, since Lord Jaron's life had been saved by Theo himself. As the scene shifts again, we see Theo riding atop the massive but surprisingly cute Jewel Frog King. Theo ordered Lord Jaron to eat as many purple locusts as possible and to fill his stomach until he was completely satisfied. Hearing this, Lord Jaron leaped straight into the heart of the purple locust swarm, which was engulfing the entire area. Meanwhile, the scene shifts back to the dimensional space. Sei-June finally woke up, along with the other monsters. As he stretched and looked around, he frowned slightly, wondering where the golden cat Theo had gone. And with that, this chapter comes to an end. But here, another surprise. 6 continuous chapters are going to be released next. So if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing so you don't miss the upcoming parts. Enjoy the holidays as we finally return to the story with Sei-June and Theo, the golden cat. Thanks for watching. Now Sei-June was genuinely worried. He wondered whether everyone was ready because they had to head out and find Theo and figure out where he had gone. Baby Bear and the warrior rabbit were already prepared, along with the others. The princess, however, was confused, wondering where the golden cat could have gone all by himself in the middle of the night. Even Iona was worried, knowing that the area outside must still be swarming with locusts. That was exactly why Sei-June knew he had to find the cat quickly, otherwise things could easily go wrong. Meanwhile, the black rabbit stepped forward and raised his chest proudly, telling the princess that no matter what happened, he swore he would protect her at all costs. The princess blushed slightly and replied that she believed he would, calling him Sir Knight. Hearing this, the black rabbit turned red himself, flustered by her words. Sei-June then told everyone to get ready, as he finally reached for the dimensional door. The moment the door opened, everyone rushed out with all their magic power and physical strength, shouting at the top of their lungs, "Avengers, assemble!" and telling the bugs to bring it on. But the moment they stepped outside, they froze. There was nothing. The surroundings were completely desolate. Only the dimensional gate stood behind them, with no enemies in sight. Sei-June quickly realized that the area they had previously cleared was still safe. Suddenly, the black rabbit's ears twitched. He raised his hand and told everyone to wait. Focusing carefully on the sound, he sensed something massive approaching their position. Sei-June immediately tensed up, wondering what it could be. The princess speculated that it might be a new breed of locust, but Iona shook her head, saying that it shouldn't be possible. Even so, Sei-June tightened his grip on his axe and told everyone to brace themselves for whatever was coming. What happened next shocked him to his core. A giant frog suddenly leaped straight over their heads, casting an enormous shadow over Sei-June and the others. Everyone screamed in alarm as the massive creature landed heavily in the swamp, the impact splashing muddy water everywhere and soaking everyone nearby. As the water settled, they noticed a small silhouette clinging desperately to the frog. It was Theo, barely hanging on. Theo looked at his companions with a smug grin and teased them, asking if they had all been waiting for the mighty Theo, the golden cat. Iona stared in disbelief, completely confused by what she was seeing. Sei-June quickly asked Theo if he was all right. Theo replied proudly that he was completely fine, and casually added that he had even made a new subordinate named Jaron. Sei-June blinked. "Who is Jaron?" Theo explained that thanks to Jaron, they had wiped out a massive number of purple locusts. At that moment, the giant Jewel Frog King noticed the mark on Sei-June's hand, the unmistakable crest of the Black Dragon. Without hesitation, Lord Jaron, along with multiple Jewel Frogs, immediately bowed before Sei-June. They explained that they had been able to overcome the locusts thanks to the dish Sei-June had cooked, and that it had helped them immensely. Sei-June wondered aloud whether these frogs were different from the ones on the 75th floor. The owner explained that these were jewel frogs, and they were the very targets their team was supposed to protect for this mission. Lord Jaron was none other than the king of the jewel frogs, and at that moment, Theo was sitting cutely on his head. Yona could hardly believe that the golden cat had managed to make such a powerful being his subordinate entirely on his own. She stared at Theo in awe, wondering just who he truly was to possess such influence. Theo, however, didn't care about that at all. Instead, he immediately turned to Sei-June and asked if he had done a good job. Sei-June, though still nervous, was also extremely curious about how Theo had managed all of this. Theo, however, had no intention of explaining anything just yet. First came the treats and the churros. Since he had done such a good job, he deserved at least that much. Clinging tightly to Sei-June's legs, Theo urged him to go back inside. Sei-June opened the dimensional door again and told everyone that they would talk inside. Theo was already smiling, imagining the treats he was about to receive. But as Sei-June turned around, he noticed Lord Jaron hesitating, clearly wondering how he would fit through the entrance. Sei-June explained apologetically that although he would love to invite him inside, the entrance was simply too small. Lord Jaron proved himself to be a wise and understanding king. He calmly replied that Sei-June need not worry about that. Suddenly, the multicolored jewel on Lord Jaron's head began to shine brilliantly. The light was so intense that everyone had to close their eyes to protect themselves. As the glow intensified, something incredible happened. Slowly but surely, Lord Jaron's massive body began to shrink. When the light finally faded, the once giant jewel frog king had transformed into a cute, chubby frog, even smaller than the other jewel frogs. Sei-June stared in amazement and wondered aloud whether Lord Jaron was similar to Baby Bear, someone who could shrink and expand at will. Hearing this, the king laughed lightly and told Sei-June that it was nothing special. Yona immediately rushed forward to examine the newly transformed frog, her curiosity completely overflowing. While Sei-June was happily telling everyone that they should have a meal together, the scene shifted back into the cozy dimensional space once again. Yona was yelling at Theo, just like a worried girlfriend, asking the cat whether he even had any idea how worried the hamster had been after he vanished in the middle of the night. Theo, however, was completely relaxed, knowing that nothing bad had actually happened. He also knew better than to mention that he had been kidnapped and had nearly died, because that would only make things worse for him. As the scene shifted toward Sei-June, we saw that the entire fireplace had been completed and was now being upgraded once again so that he could cook more food inside it. Theo and the others gathered around, drooling uncontrollably when they saw a delicious-looking stew. The dish was called Purple Chef's Potato Stew. It was made from thinly sliced purple locust meat, combined with detoxifying green onions and strength potatoes, all boiled together for a long time so the ingredients could blend harmoniously and enhance each other's effects. Upon consumption, strength would increase by 10.5 for 30 minutes, the user would feel full for 4 hours, and gain low-level poison resistance. Everyone lined up eagerly as the food was cooked inside a giant clay pot. Sei-June told everyone to line up and take their portions so they could eat their fill. When the Black Warrior Rabbit ate, he felt completely satisfied, both in body and soul. Yona ate quietly while the jewel frogs also enjoyed the meal, amazed by how delicious it was, especially the detoxifying green onions and the purple locust meat. One of the jewel frogs thought it was miraculous. Normally, just touching the skin of a red locust would melt a frog's skin due to its toxicity, but thanks to the green onions, the detoxification effect was incredible. Meanwhile, the cute jewel frog king was extremely pleased, saying that this was exactly what one would expect from the black dragon. Thanks to this food, they could finally fight the locusts properly. Sei-June encouraged everyone to eat well and regain their strength so they could finish exterminating the purple locusts. However, for the jewel frogs, the feeling was bittersweet. They had to eliminate the bugs, but knowing they would no longer be able to eat this delicious dish afterward was heartbreaking. Sei-June smiled and told everyone that there was something he hadn't told them yet. He gestured for everyone to follow him, saying that he wanted to show them something. As everyone followed Sei-June, he stopped in front of a wooden door. Even Theo was curious, wondering what that door was, since the last time he had seen it, he was too busy eating to pay attention. Sei-June then explained that he had asked Yona to create a special space. When the door was opened, everyone was stunned. Inside was a massive freezer, filled with an enormous number of frozen purple locusts. Iona had originally frozen them as research samples for the Wizards Association. According to her, it was fine for Sei-June to use some of them as cooking ingredients. Baby Bear couldn't tolerate the cold and immediately started sneezing non-stop. The jewel frogs wondered whether freezing the locusts would make them taste better. As the temperature dropped further, the jewel frog king began growing sleepier with every passing second, while even Theo started shivering from the cold. Sei-June realized that the monsters were unfamiliar with the concept of cold storage. He explained that keeping things cold prevents them from rotting, allowing them to be stored and eaten for a long time. Thanks to Yona, they now had a massive freezer where they could preserve ingredients. Yona blushed at the praise, explaining that setting up a semi-permanent freezing magic circle over such a large space was actually very high-level magic, but she had still managed to do it. Everyone was surprised by how capable Yona truly was. Baby Bear began climbing on the giant ice cubes, while the princess wondered if they should freeze the detoxifying green onions as well so they wouldn't go to waste. Sei-June told everyone that the green onions were fine, since he could simply farm more. The jewel frogs didn't understand the concept of farming and asked what it was. Sei-June started to explain, but midway through, he realized everyone had begun sneezing and coughing because it was far too cold. By then, the jewel frog king had already fallen asleep, entering hibernation. Meanwhile, both Yona and the green jewel frog were completely fine. At that moment, Sei-June came up with a great idea. The scene then shifted to the administrator tower, where Eileen was flipping through multiple books at the same time. She was reading intensely, wondering what she should do until Sei-June returned, knowing she needed to grant him the proper authority as a mid-level manager so he wouldn't face such difficulties again. She kept reading book after book until suddenly her eyes lit up. She had found something. The book itself was magical, its letters glowing brightly. Eileen hugged the blue book tightly, feeling relieved. She knew that this was it, that she had finally found the solution. Confident that Sei-June would return safely to the 99th floor, she held the book close, reassured that everything would be all right. Guys, we are so close to 100,000 subscribers, and I know you all are awesome. And you all can do it in no time, so please hit the subscribe button right now. And now enjoy the story further. As the scene shifts, we come to the lizard men, along with the wolf tribe guards and the others, who were relieved and happy that the evacuation of the wounded was complete. They could no longer feel any locust presence around the area. Finally, the lizard men were able to breathe again, and some of them began to think that the fight was finally over. However, the leader Tamurao stopped everyone and told them that it was far too early to celebrate. The war was not over yet. He reminded them that both Manager Theo and Lord Jaron, who had played massive roles in the battle, had headed toward the swamp first. They could still be fighting even now. The lizard men, who owed their lives to them, could not simply stand by and do nothing. With morale running high, everyone gathered together and decided to march toward the swamp to protect them. But when the scene shifts and they finally reach the swamp, they are met with a completely unexpected sight. Instead of a battlefield, they see Baby Bear, along with the other monsters, calmly planting detoxifying green onions and bladed green onions into the ground. Sei-June and Theo were supervising their work, guiding them on how to properly plant the crops. The lizard men arrived in confusion, wondering what exactly was happening. Yona noticed the lizard men lord and was genuinely happy to see that they had arrived just in time. The lizard men were shocked, especially Tamurao, because Yona, the head of the Tower Wizard Association, was actually farming. Tamurao wondered what on earth was going on. Sei-June smiled slightly and explained that they were putting an end to the battle with the locusts once and for all. Thanks to the idea of the great black dragon who stood behind them, the lizard men finally realized that the boy before them was the representative of the black dragon. They noticed that Sei-June's eyes were glowing faintly, as if he had awakened some new power, while he instructed the jewel frogs to plant green onions across specific areas of the swamp. Theo, on the other hand, was completely baffled. He asked why they were going through all this trouble of splitting the green onions and planting them everywhere. Sei-June explained that green onions must be planted in well-drained soil because they would not grow properly in soil that was too damp. Thanks to his plantation skill, which had now reached level 5, Sei-June could clearly see which ground was suitable for which crops. In this situation, the skill was proving to be far more useful than he had ever imagined. Soon, even the army of the lizard men began helping the jewel frogs plant the green onions. As the farming continued at full pace, Sei-June thought that once it was complete, the 67th floor would be able to handle the locusts on its own. From the very beginning, his goal had been to prevent the extinction of the jewel frogs in Navia Swamp on the 67th floor. Suddenly, a system notification appeared. At the same time, the black warrior rabbit sensed something unusual. The princess asked what was wrong, and the warrior rabbit announced that the purple locusts were finally coming. Another massive swarm was heading straight toward them at incredible speed. The warrior rabbit readied his trusted hammer. A giant swarm of purple locusts hovered above their heads. Everyone panicked for a brief moment, but soon calmed down. After all, Sei-June was with them. Sei-June immediately announced that everyone should chew the detoxifying green onions and use their bladed green onions as weapons to slash the locusts in half. Baby Bear grumbled in annoyance, saying that no matter how many times he saw those purple locusts, they were always disgusting and filthy. As the scene shifts, we see jewel frogs, Baby Bear, and the lizard men preparing to fight the swarm while consuming the detoxifying green onions, granting them immunity to poison for 1 hour. Sei-June declared that their sole mission was to protect Navia Swamp. He took out his dagger and axe, ready to fight alongside his trusted companions. Now we see Iona, who is continuously launching lightning attacks, turning the purple locusts into exploding firecrackers with ease. Baby Bear swung his massive wooden log, smashing the red locusts out of the air. The black warrior rabbit and the lizard men fought fiercely with swords and hammers, determined to destroy as many purple locusts as possible. At the center of it all was Sei-June, dual-wielding his weapons and hacking his way through the swarm, breaking their formation with relentless precision. Meanwhile, Theo released the Jewel Frog King from his arms. As Lord Jaron leapt forward, the jewel on his back began to shine brilliantly once again with multiple colors. In moments, the frog returned to his original massive size, his stomach expanding as hunger surged through him. Staring at the purple locusts as if they were nothing more than delicious snacks, Lord Jaron began swinging his tongue like a helicopter once again, instantly grabbing multiple locusts in a single sweep. The frog ate in the thousands without even hesitating, gulping them down one after another. Those who had never seen this before were completely shocked, including Sei-June and the princess. They found it incredible and wanted the Jewel Frog King to keep going. Meanwhile, the other jewel frogs also joined in. Even though they were small, they began eating the purple locusts as well, because they were no longer poisonous at all. The leader Tamurao was slashing as many purple locusts as he could, cutting them cleanly in half. But then he noticed something shocking. The purple locusts were changing color. Tamurao's eyes widened as he realized that the locusts were degenerating and slowly turning back into red locusts. He felt relief wash over him as hope returned. A system notification appeared, making everyone happy, including Sei-June. He read it aloud, announcing that as the locust population decreased, they were degenerating from purple locusts back into their original red locust form. Sei-June smiled and encouraged all the cute creatures, big and small, to keep pushing them back. Everyone shouted in unison as they launched another wave of attacks. Finally, as the scene shifts, we see Theo letting out a sigh of relief. Everyone else had also finished their part of the battle. Theo was happy that they had won without anyone getting hurt, realizing that this was the true power of the bladed green onions and detoxifying green onions. Even Lord Jaron, the Jewel Frog King, was burping loudly after his feast, clearly satisfied. One of the lizard men's soldiers approached Sei-June and respectfully called him the Great Black Dragon. 2 jewel frogs followed shortly after, bowing deeply and thanking him for saving them. The jewel frogs promised that from now on, they would farm both the bladed green onions and detoxifying green onions themselves. They swore to exterminate the remaining locusts and protect Navia Swamp on their own. At that moment, a system notification informed Sei-June that he had finally completed the mid-level manager quest after almost 1 full year. As a reward, he obtained 3 million experience points and 50,000 tower coins. Sei-June could hardly believe it. He felt that he had achieved an incredible feat. Just then, the Lizardmen leader Tamurao stepped forward again, also calling Sei-June the Great Black Dragon. Tamurao confessed honestly that he had been largely responsible for the entire situation. Sei-June received 1 extra stat point and wondered what Tamurao meant. A flashback followed. It revealed that the Lizardmen had trusted Tarek the pig, who was actually the mastermind behind feeding the locusts even after they had been subdued. Tamurao had received continuous rewards from him and never once suspected anything was wrong. Now Tamurao placed a reward box in his hands and opened it, showing Sei-June the item he had received from the pig. He offered it up, wanting to sacrifice it to the Great Black Dragon. Sei-June refused. He told Tamurao that it was fine, and instead instructed the Lizardmen to use that reward to restore the 67th floor after the destruction caused by the battle. A blue aura suddenly surrounded everyone who had come from the upper floor. A system notification announced that they would be returning to the 99th floor in 30 seconds. Hearing this, the Lizardmen leader was deeply moved. The jewel frogs were also surprised by the generosity of the legendary Black Dragon. Soon, the blue aura completely enveloped everyone. They were shot upward into the sky and teleported back to the 99th floor of the tower. Finally, after almost 1 year, they were witnessing the 99th floor once again. Even Sei-June felt emotional, realizing how long it had been. The fresh air felt incredible after such a long time. The black wolf, white wolf, the entire rabbit family, and the cute little bunnies rushed forward, shocked and overjoyed that their master, Sei-June, had finally returned. Sei-June knelt down, checking on everyone and marveling at how much the baby rabbits had grown. He petted them affectionately, admitting how much he had missed them. Suddenly, Theo glanced behind him and noticed something strange. Sneaking quietly onto the 99th floor was none other than Lord Jairon, the Jewel Frog King. Theo was shocked that Jairon had followed them all the way up. Meanwhile, Sei-June asked the mother rabbit and father rabbit about Bat-Bat, wondering how he was doing and whether he had adjusted well, since it had been so long since they last saw him. The mother rabbit pointed toward the house of Sei-June they had built. Inside, multiple queen bees and worker bees were taking care of Bat-Bat, who was happily resting upside down in the shade, just as bats should. She explained that Bat-Bat was doing perfectly fine. Sei-June also noticed that the fields looked amazing. The farm hadn't changed at all, and the new crops were fully grown, tomatoes, potatoes, and many other crops thriving beautifully. The farmer rabbit explained that the residents of Grainier Village were eager to help with the work. Even though they had all scattered earlier for their wandering merchant jobs, they had now returned and completed a great deal of work. Even the architect rabbits came over to Sei-June, calling out to him and telling him that they had prepared something while he was away. They asked if he would like to follow them. As the scene shifts, we arrive near the pit below the 99th floor. Sei-June immediately recognized the place. It was the cave where he had first entered the tower. As he looked around, he noticed something new on the floor, a trapdoor that had not been there before. Sei-June opened it, and Theo peeked inside. We see that entering the cave was no longer troublesome, because the architect rabbits had built stairs that extended deep downward. Sei-June began walking inside, noticing multiple candles lighting the entire area and preventing darkness from spreading. Sei-June felt pleased seeing the staircase that led directly into the cave. He realized that from now on, they could come and go freely without needing someone above to pull them up. He immediately understood just how hard the architect rabbits must have worked on this. Meanwhile, we see the 2 cute little beings, whose names had been forgotten, along with Flame, all happily looking at their master. We also notice that there were now multiple purifying Ents, whereas before there had only been one when Sei-June left. Even Baby Bear wondered what was going on. We come to learn that the first Ent, named Pasaki, had produced more seeds. For Sei-June, this was great news, as it meant that the flaming tree would now have more companions willing to protect her. Just then, a system notification appeared. It was revealed that Eileen was shocked to see that Sei-June had returned. Sei-June smiled and asked her how she had been doing. However, the dragon lady felt both relief and irritation at seeing his cheerful expression, making her feel foolish for worrying so much about the team she had sent. She brushed those feelings aside and told Sei-June that, more importantly, she had something to give him right now. Sei-June was surprised, wondering what else there could be. Inside the administrator tower, Eileen opened the blue book and began channeling magic into the crystal orb. She told Sei-June to think of it as a reward for all his hard work. As the spell took effect, Sei-June was enveloped in a blue aura from head to toe. He was startled as he felt a powerful surge of energy flow through his body. Something had clearly changed. The dragon lady smiled calmly and told him to look forward to it, because she had finally found the greatest authority suitable for him. It was called the authority of an unbreakable body, granted to the mid-level manager Sei-June. Only then did Sei-June realize what it meant. With the unbreakable body, his physical body could never be broken. The realization shocked him, and he wondered in disbelief whether he had now become truly invincible. But as Sei-June saw the blue energy fading away, he wondered why he was not feeling its power yet. Hearing this, Baby Bear decided to test it immediately. He took out his trusty wooden weapon and slammed it down with insane force straight onto Sei-June's head. Sei-June was startled and fell to the ground as smoke rose from his head due to the impact. When Baby Bear realized that Sei-June's head had not fallen off, he became overjoyed, knowing that his dad had finally become strong. Even Thea realized that Sei-June did not break, even after taking a full-powered strike from the bear. However, Sei-June began crying, telling Baby Bear that he could still feel the pain exactly as before. He warned Baby Bear not to expect any dinner tonight for pulling such a cruel surprise attack. Sei-June then turned toward the tower administrator and thanked her sincerely for the incredible gift. The dragon lady told Sei-June that she would be leaving things in his care from now on. Suddenly, a system notification appeared. It informed Sei-June that a quest had been triggered. The job quest was to realize the joy of harvesting and to use the harvesting skill 100,000 times. The reward for completing it would be level 51, 50,000 tower coins, and all tower farmer job skills increasing by 1 level. However, completing 100,000 harvests was clearly not an easy task. As the scene shifts, we arrive at the Rabbit Kingdom floor, where Greed was staring at his old portrait like a narcissistic creature. A soldier approached Greed and informed him that there was an urgent report. After receiving permission to speak, the messenger explained that the Wandering Merchant Association had sent a summon to Greed. The situation was serious because the fat pig Tarek had been captured after failing to kidnap the bunny princess. During interrogation, Tarek had mentioned Greed's name, making him a suspect as well. Greed's eyes filled with killing intent as he wondered how Tarek could be such a fool. Greed had treated him well, as Tarek was a fellow Boar elder, and had even entrusted him with an important relic to carry out the job. Now, due to Tarek's mistake, the Wandering Merchant Association, an organization funded by Greed, had dared to act against him. Greed turned toward the messenger and asked whether there was any concrete evidence linking him to Tarek. The messenger replied that there were indeed clues, as Yona, head of the Magic Association, and the Inspection Bureau led by Inspector Fox had carried out a joint operation. A flashback appears. We see Inspector Fox arresting Tarek on 8 criminal charges, including kidnapping, unlawful confinement, and blackmail. The authorities had secured Tarek's confession using a recording device. Tarek was completely exposed, revealing that he was the one who had fed the red locusts. Once everything was devastated and the food supply was gone, the 67th floor would fall under Lord Greed's control. After reading the summon, Greed tore it apart, dismissing the messenger and telling him to leave. He continued staring at his portrait, still unable to believe that the Merchant Association had summoned him and that he would be forced to step forward personally. Greed took a black book from a bookshelf, a book he had never read. This black book was actually the key to a hidden passage. As the bookshelf moved aside, greed descended deeper underground and opened a massive gate with a giant golden bow symbol engraved on it. Beyond the gate stood a white dragon statue, surrounded by massive piles of gold scattered throughout the chamber. The sight revealed just how greedy the pig truly was. Suddenly, the white dragon statue began to speak. Hearing the voice, greed immediately bowed in respect, greeting the great white dragon speaking through the statue. The white dragon's eyes glowed with crimson energy as they glared at greed. The scene shifts back to the 99th floor cave. Rabbit farmers were harvesting cherry tomatoes, while other rabbits and ants watered the flame tree and nurtured new saplings. Baby Bear helped gather water from the nearby lake, while the small rabbit children looked up to their big brother in admiration. The bunny princess was treated generously, with the architect rabbits presenting her with everything they had harvested. Everyone noticed that Sei-June was counting numbers under his breath. As the scene shifts again, we see Sei-June, Theo, and the black rabbit pulling on something firmly rooted in the ground. No matter how hard they tried, they failed to uproot it. The red vine with multiple leaves remained intact, standing firmly in place. Sei-June realized that what they were trying to uproot was no joke. Even Theo had never seen such a huge sweet potato vine before, knowing that there was definitely a massive sweet potato buried underground. Hearing the words massive sweet potato, Baby Bear felt a sudden surge of strength as his eyes started sparkling. He began growing bigger and bigger, grabbing the vine and pulling it with all the strength he had. Meanwhile, both Sei-June and Theo stepped back and started cheering loudly for Baby Bear. Baby Bear screamed with all his power, and as the sweet potato slowly began emerging from the ground, both Theo and Sei-June made exaggerated, shocked faces. Finally, the entire sweet potato came out, and Baby Bear returned to his baby form. A system notification appeared, informing Sei-June that it was a giant pumpkin sweet potato grown in the tower. It tasted delicious due to sufficient nutrients, but it had used all those nutrients solely for growth. As a result, it provided no effects when consumed and would not sprout even if planted. It was a grade C crop with an expiration date of 45 days. Everyone climbed all over it, unable to believe that such a giant sweet potato was right in front of them. Even Sei-June knew that this sweet potato was incredible. Just one of them would be enough to feed everyone. Baby Bear could not wait any longer and told his dad that he wanted to eat it immediately. However, when Sei-June looked at his current mission, he saw that he had only used the harvest skill approximately 3,000 times, even though he needed to use it 100,000 times. He wondered when he would ever finish it. Still, Sei-June turned around and looked at the happy, cute monsters and announced that they should eat first. Baby Bear had worked hard, and even the punishment he had received earlier was officially taken back. He would get dinner after all. Everyone smiled cheerfully. Sei-June took out the dimensional space key and opened the dimensional gate directly into the cave on the 99th floor. He told Baby Bear to take out 10 purple locusts from inside. Baby Bear immediately ran in and started pulling out purple locusts. The wolf chief stared in confusion, while the other rabbits found the locusts disgusting. Theo quickly told everyone not to judge them by appearance alone, explaining that they actually tasted incredible. The rabbits looked at him doubtfully. The scene shifts again as Sei-June and the others began cooking purple locust sweet potato soup once more. As it cooked, Sei-June tasted it bit by bit, carefully adjusting the ingredients. The mother rabbit watched nervously, thinking the stew looked suspicious. Sei-June was satisfied with the result, knowing that adding the giant sweet potato for extra sweetness had been the right decision. It made the flavor richer. He handed the first bowl to the artist rabbit, asking him to try it, but no one dared to move. Even the mother rabbit was shivering, disturbed by the stew's appearance. Suddenly, the chubby rabbit stepped forward without hesitation, grabbed the bowl, and started eating non-stop. He finished it in mere seconds and gave everyone a look that clearly said he had gone to heaven. Sei-June asked the chubby rabbit if he wanted another bowl. The rabbit immediately ran back enthusiastically. Seeing that the stew was safe, the other rabbits finally relaxed. Even the artist rabbit and the mother rabbit began eating, while the baby rabbits could only sniff the delicious aroma. The mother rabbit carefully fed tiny portions to the bobbies. The architect rabbit found the stew incredibly delicious, and Sei-June continued serving bowls one by one to everyone lined up. The next bowl was offered to Yona, but she declined, along with the princess and the black warrior rabbit. Yona explained that they had urgent business to attend to. The trial of Greed, the landlord of the 55th floor, was about to begin. The time had finally come to hold him accountable for his crimes and punish him accordingly. Sei-June agreed, feeling relieved that the black warrior rabbit would be accompanying them, knowing they would be safe. Just then, Lord Garon returned and called out to Theo. Theo asked if the frog had enjoyed his walk outside, but Garon replied that he had discovered something unusual up on the 99th floor. Sei-June immediately became curious and asked what it was. As the scene shifts, we return outside to the 99th floor farm, where Sei-June and the others were staring upward in shock at something enormous casting a shadow over them, all wondering what it could possibly be. Guys, we are so close to 100,000 subscribers, and I know you all are awesome. And you all can do it in no time, so please hit the subscribe button right now, and now enjoy the story further. We see that in front of Sei-June and the others was not a monster or a giant being, but instead another giant crop. It had leaves so large that they worked like full-blown fans. Theo immediately realized that it was a giant carrot and wondered what they should do about it. Even the baby bear froze for a moment because this was too much even for him. Sei-June wondered what they should do, thinking about whether they should dig up the surrounding earth to harvest the carrot properly. Theo told everyone not to worry, reminding them that he was the golden merchant cat. He then told Jaron to transform into his usual larger form. As the jewel frog king grew in size, he prepared to pull the carrot out. He grabbed the leaves firmly and told everyone to leave it to him. Using all his strength, he pulled upward. The ground began to shake violently, and Jaron used his utmost power, yet the carrot did not budge at all. Sei-June could not believe it. Even with Jaron's strength, it was impossible. He wondered what on earth was buried beneath the ground. Just then, Sei-June heard a heavy thumping sound and turned to look. At the same time, the baby bear suddenly became excited. The reason was revealed immediately. The mother bear had returned to the 99th floor. However, the situation quickly turned dangerous. The jewel frog king and the red mother bear locked eyes, clearly ready to clash. Even though Sei-June told them not to fight, he realized that since Jaron had come from another floor, he had unintentionally offended the mother bear. Theo clutched his head, knowing that Jaron was technically his subordinate, but he had no idea how to stop this confrontation. Before things escalated further, the baby bear ran between the red mother bear and the jewel frog king. He excitedly told his mother that there was a huge carrot buried in the ground and that he wanted to eat it as soon as possible. The mother bear snapped out of her aggressive stance and looked at the giant carrot leaves. The jewel frog king also paused. They stared at each other for a moment, and then Sei-June suddenly had an idea. He told both giant creatures that instead of fighting, they should combine their strength and pull the carrot out together, since they were the two most powerful beings on the 99th floor. Fighting might be their instinct, but cooperation was possible. Both creatures hesitated, but in the end they agreed for the sake of the baby bear. They each grabbed the carrot leaves and began pulling upward with full force. The power they exerted was so immense that it caused a literal earthquake. Sei-June wondered just how massive this carrot was to cause such tremors. The baby bear cheered loudly for his mother, telling her to hang in there. Both the mother bear and the jewel frog king struggled intensely, yet slowly, impossibly, the carrot began to rise. Everyone watched in disbelief. The giant carrot kept coming out, and it did not stop. Right in front of Sei-June and the others, the golden carrot lifted completely out of the ground and began floating in the air. The mother bear nearly collapsed from exhaustion, while the jewel frog king stared in shock. Everyone else was frozen, unable to believe what they were seeing. At that moment, a system notification appeared. It informed Sei-June that he had harvested the red ribbon's giant carrot altar. His job experience increased greatly, and his harvesting level 4 proficiency also rose significantly. In addition, he obtained 10,000 experience points. Sei-June was stunned. He wondered what exactly the red ribbon's giant carrot altar was. Hearing the system message, the father rabbit and the yellow rabbit children hurried over. Before Sei-June could ask further questions, another system window appeared. It stated that Sei-June must offer 100 crops of 10 different types to the Red Ribbon's giant carrot altar within 24 hours and hold the Harvest Festival of Abundance. The reward for completing the festival would be a job skill called Crop Gigantic. Sei-June could hardly believe it. He had received a special quest tied to this floating carrot, and he now had to host something called the Harvest Festival of Abundance to obtain the reward. Meanwhile, the Jewel Frog King poked the floating carrot curiously, still confused about what it was. The father rabbit stepped forward and explained everything. He told Sei-June that this was the legendary golden carrot altar passed down in the Red Ribbon Kingdom. According to the legends of the Black Tower, a giant golden carrot once rose from the ground, and a great conflict broke out among the rabbits over who would claim it. However, during the chaos, one great rabbit shouted for peace and shared his food in front of the golden carrot. Moved by his kindness, the other rabbits followed, sharing their own food one by one. Soon, a peaceful celebration was held before the golden carrot, a festival that later became known as the Harvest Festival of Abundance. But still, a question remained in Sei-June's mind. Why would a carrot from the Red Ribbon Kingdom's legends appear on the 99th floor? The even bigger question, especially in the baby bear's mind, was that the carrot was not golden at all. However, Sei-June realized that asking endless questions would not change anything. So he decided to follow the system's instructions, open the ribbon of the carrot, and hold the Harvest Festival of Abundance. As the scene shifts, Sei-June finds himself in a dilemma counting the crops he currently has. These included carrots, cherry tomatoes, pumpkin sweet potatoes, corn, normal potatoes, and lastly, green onions. He took out 100 of each and wondered if that was enough. He found it strange, because he was sure he had planted a wider variety of crops. The farmer rabbit told Sei-June that he was correct and asked him to follow him to another place, explaining that the farm had already expanded. As the scene shifts, Sei-June saw juicy strawberries and even chili peppers, crops they had never eaten before. He could not believe that these crops had already been harvested, because he remembered buying their seeds long ago together with the carrots. The baby bear began drooling, realizing that he had never tasted these crops before, but instinctively feeling that they would be delicious. Sei-June finally understood that the father rabbit had worked extremely hard as a tenant farmer while Sei-June was away on the 67th floor. Thanks to his efforts, they now had 2 additional crop types to offer to the altar. Then the rabbit revealed that there were actually 3 additional crops. Sei-June turned toward him in surprise, and the rabbit showed him peanuts. This made Sei-June even happier, wondering how they were already ready for harvest. That was when Sei-June realized that it must have been because of the mysterious stone monument. The rabbit confirmed this, explaining that Sei-June was correct. The crops had been growing rapidly thanks to the monument's influence. Sei-June realized that he needed to pay closer attention to the farm now that it had expanded so much. He thanked all the rabbits sincerely for raising the crops so well in his absence. As the rabbits started eating strawberries together with the baby bear, Sei-June reviewed the crops they had cultivated so far. Carrots, cherry tomatoes, pumpkin sweet potatoes, corn, normal potatoes, green onions, strawberries, chili peppers, and peanuts. That made 9 types of crops. Sei-June was missing one last type. As the baby bear grabbed multiple strawberries and stuffed them into his mouth, Sei-June frowned slightly, realizing this was a problem. Suddenly, Theo remembered something and told Sei-June that there was one more crop. Sei-June asked what it was. Theo reminded him that when they went to the 75th floor, they had planted the yellow fruit obtained after defeating the Frog Queen. The baby bear called it Pine's Horn, but Sei-June corrected him gently, explaining that it was called a pineapple. However, Sei-June also realized that they had planted very few pineapples. Since they were planted recently, he doubted that even 10 had fully grown yet. By the time they harvested 100 pineapples for the festival, the other crops would begin to rot, wasting everything. To make matters worse, the seed shop had not opened yet, so Sei-June was blocked there as well. Still, Sei-June knew one thing for sure: overthinking would not solve anything. He decided to harvest relentlessly for now, while Theo and the others cheered him on, knowing that a massive amount of work awaited them. As the scene shifts, we move to the Merchants' Association, inside the Merchant Passage Central Court. An owl judge called out to the defendant, who was none other than the pig Greed. The judge announced that the locust outbreak on the 67th floor had been deliberately instigated and aided by Greed and his subordinates. Greed was also charged with soliciting the kidnapping of Magic Association President Iona, as well as the Red Ribbon Kingdom's princess, Boo Boo. Furthermore, Greed was accused of committing treason, including releasing locusts on the 55th floor in the past to attack the Red Ribbon Kingdom, assassinating the king and queen, and attempting to seize the throne. After listing all the charges, the owl judge slammed the hammer onto the platform, declaring that the trial to address these crimes would now begin. Yet despite hearing his name tied to every accusation, Greed only smiled devilishly, completely unfazed by what was about to happen. The scene shifts to the inside of the tower, where Sei-June is quietly picking strawberries one by one in a vast strawberry field. As he works, a system notification appears before his eyes. It identifies the crop as a lucky strawberry, a tower-grown fruit that has fully absorbed nutrients. Its taste and quality have improved due to the farmer's skill, and consuming it increases luck for 1 hour. It is a grade C crop with a 90-day expiration period. Sei-June smiles faintly as he looks down at the strawberries in his hands. When he turns around, he notices white rabbits hopping around the field, diligently helping him harvest. The sight makes him smile again. Moments later, as Sei-June plucks a chili pepper from the soil, another notification appears. This one identifies the crop as a calmness chili pepper, also grown inside the tower and fully enriched with nutrients. Consuming it calms the mind for 1 hour. Like the strawberries, it is a grade C crop with a 90-day expiration. Seeing this, Sei-June feels satisfied, realizing he can now make spicy food as well. He moves to the other side of the field to continue harvesting chili peppers. Suddenly, he notices the baby bear holding one of the peppers and bringing it to his mouth. Sei-June reacts too late. The baby bear eats it immediately. A few seconds pass before the effect kicks in. Flames burst from the baby bear's mouth as it starts screaming in agony. Sei-June freezes in shock at the sight, then quickly reassures him, knowing the effect will only last a short while. True to his words, the burning sensation begins to fade after several seconds. With the situation under control, Sei-June resumes his work. He gathers the harvested strawberries and places them neatly in a separate area. As he does so, he calculates the quantity and concludes that 100 of each crop should be enough. The others join in to help, and in no time, all the harvested crops are neatly arranged in front of the giant golden carrot altar. Sei-June counts them and confirms that 9 different types of crops are ready. At that moment, a new notification appears. It is a job quest related to harvesting, requiring the use of the harvest skill 100,000 times. The system shows that Sei-June has already used it over 11,000 times, meaning he has surpassed the 10,000 mark. He pauses briefly, wondering what to do about the final crop. Theo, standing nearby, points out that only pineapples remain. Immediately after, the white rabbit formally dedicates the harvest to the golden carrot, offering sincerity and requesting a blessing of abundance. Before the white rabbit can say anything else, the golden carrot begins to shine intensely. Another system notification appears, confirming that 100 units each of 107 crop types have been offered and that the quest has been completed. As a reward, the Festival of Abundant Harvest is activated. Sei-June watches the glowing altar with satisfaction, realizing their plan has succeeded. The white rabbit confirms it as well. Another notification follows, announcing that the giant carrot altar of the red ribbon is bestowing a great blessing upon the entire area. The golden light grows so intense that even Aileen's crystal ball begins to shine. Elsewhere in the tower, a dragon woman reading quietly is startled by the sudden surge of power. The glow spreads across multiple floors, catching the attention of many. Among them, warriors of the Minotaur tribe stop in shock. Their king stares at the light in disbelief, wondering what kind of phenomenon could produce such radiance. After a brief moment, he gives an order for everyone to prepare and move toward the source, noting that it has been a long time since their last expedition. The scene then abruptly shifts to the central court of the Merchant Passage. A verdict has just been delivered and the courtroom falls into stunned silence. Iona reacts first, unable to believe what she has heard. Grid has been acquitted. Grid, standing calmly on the opposite side, begins to smile. Just then, a member of the police force seated beside the main judge rises and declares his intention to testify. He claims that everything that happened was orchestrated by Grid himself. After hearing the accusation, the judge responds calmly, stating that there is no concrete evidence to support the claim. At that moment, the fox steps forward and produces a ring, declaring it to be undeniable proof. To reinforce his claim, he plays a recorded confession from Tarek, in which Tarek openly admits his crime and explains that the plan was to starve regions by cutting off food supplies so that, when everything collapsed, the land would inevitably fall under Lord Grid's rule. As the recording ends, all eyes turn to Grid. Standing on the opposite side, he remains composed and even acknowledges that the ring is indeed solid evidence. However, he immediately clarifies that it only proves Tarek's crime, not his own, and calmly adds that he has no idea why Tarek mentioned his name in the first place. The fox is enraged by this response and insists that Grid was the one who gave the orders. The judge then turns his attention to Tarek and asks him directly if this accusation is true. Without hesitation, Tarek admits that he acted alone. He claims that everything was planned to secure his position within the Boer Elder Council and that framing Grid was part of that scheme. Before the tension can settle, Iona slams her hands onto the table, loudly rejecting Tarek's confession and declaring that everyone knows they were all working together. In response, Grid calmly shifts the direction of the accusation. He states that, in truth, the entire situation was orchestrated by Iona herself. The sudden reversal shocks the courtroom. Iona reacts with fury, loudly denying the accusation and calling it nonsense. Grid, however, remains relaxed and even amused. He remarks that if he had recorded her saying such things, she would be the one standing on trial instead. At this point, the princess standing beside Iona observes that Grid's calm demeanor is suspicious. Iona attempts to recover, explaining that she simply did not expect matters to unravel so openly. The atmosphere grows heavier as the judge prepares to conclude the proceedings. The verdict is delivered with formal authority. There is no evidence that conclusively proves the charges against Grid. At the same time, there is also no evidence that fully denies his connection to Tarek. As a result, the charge of instigating the crime is dismissed due to insufficient evidence. However, until suspicions regarding attempted harm toward Iona and Princess Pupu are completely cleared, Grid is prohibited from making contact. As the judgment echoes through the court, Grid smiles faintly. Around him, the expressions of those present harden, their eyes burning with anger and frustration as they stare at him. As the scene shifts, we see that after the hearing was finished, Grid was walking through a dark alleyway, and someone with a dark cloak was meeting him, thanking Grid for his hard work. The pig called the cloaked creature by the name Eidos and advised that the creature was actually a German shepherd, like dog. Grid wondered if he was still the deputy director because he was ready as soon as Grid offered him money. Hearing that, Eidos apologized. As both of them were talking, the fox inspector was listening to everything, realizing that Grid was still using underhanded tactics to save himself from a proper hearing. We come to know that Eidos was the deputy director of the Secret Inspection Bureau, and Grid had given him a lot of money to save himself. The fox already had a feeling that something was off, so he decided to follow Grid, and then he realized that Grid had bribed the inspection department so that he could be saved. So if you want Grid to actually rot in hell, just smash the like button to 2,000 likes and consider subscribing. Then Grid started talking about how it was a good decision to not execute Tarek immediately, because putting him on the witness stand would have worked in favor of the pig. Even Eidos was happy that Grid did so, because due to it, he was saved. But now the pig wanted Eidos to deal with Tarek appropriately, because the guy was useless now, as the hearing was complete. Then the pig gave something to the dog, which was shining brightly with a white aura around it. We come to know that this was the wild dragon seal, which even Eidos had only heard about. The dog wondered how on earth the pig managed to get such a precious item outside the tower. The pig wondered if the dog was actually curious as he held the wild dragon seal in his hand, but then warned him that if he tried to find out and became a curious cat, he would definitely be killed. The pig had so much killing intent that even the dog was scared, apologizing for his rudeness and backing away while grabbing the seal. The pig told Eidos that this was his last chance to do something, but the fox inspector immediately interrupted, taking out his acute gun and telling everyone not to move at all. Both Itos and Grid were shocked, wondering what the fox inspector was doing there. Finally, we remember her name once again when it is said that her name is Sei-June. Even though the dog was shocked, the pig was still standing calmly. Sei-June immediately called out to Grid, calling him the landowner of the 55th floor, along with the deputy director of the Secret Surveillance Bureau, telling both of them that they were under arrest for smuggling external goods into the tower, as the wild dragon seal was one of them. Itos told Sei-June to stop being foolish, but the pig was constantly laughing, wondering what such a small fox could do to him. But the fox inspector was not ready to give up, aiming her gun toward the deputy director and telling him that she was completely disappointed that her senior was such a scaredy cat, even when he was actually a dog. Now the pig wanted Itos to do something because the fox inspector was always staining him, and Grid wanted him to be out of the equation, telling Itos to take care of her as he started showing the wild dragon symbol to him. Even though Itos was really hesitant, the pig realized that there was no helping him. Then something sudden and violent happened as the pig stabbed the dog from behind, making him scream. The wild dragon seal fell, and the fox inspector was shocked, wondering how it had happened. Now the inspector was seriously scared, calling out to Grid and asking how he could commit such violent crimes even in front of a police officer. As Itos was falling to the ground due to the injury, the pig took out a knife and told Sei-June that the awakened position had just opened up, asking if the fox was interested in working along with him. But the fox inspector was not ready to do that, pointing her gun at Grid again and telling him to put down his weapon peacefully, while Grid remained unfazed, wondering if the fox was refusing his proposal. The pig was so confident that he threw away the knife, telling the fox to dare and arrest him, confident that he would be released again in a few days and that nothing would actually be done about it. The fox decided to arrest Grid immediately on charges of stabbing and murder, but what she saw next surprised her. The pig suddenly started moving and picked up the wild dragon seal from the ground. Even when the fox kept telling him not to move, the pig did not listen. The pig had a crimson aura in his eyes while he continuously intimidated the fox to try and arrest him. Meanwhile, we see that Sei-June was becoming more and more scared, realizing that everything was becoming increasingly dangerous. Finally, the fox got some guts and shot toward the pig. The bullet started traveling straight toward the pig's chest, but it was as if it did not affect him at all. Grid kept staring at the bullet, and as soon as it came insanely close, somehow the pig was able to dodge it. Now the fox was shocked, wondering how it was possible because it should not have happened. It seemed as if the bullet slowed down as soon as it touched the pig. Now Grid had so much confidence that he was smiling with his ugly face, telling the fox to arrest him if she actually could, pointing the wild dragon seal toward the fox as it started shining brightly with a white aura all around it. It was a trap, and now the fox inspector was completely engulfed in a white light, continuously feeling pain and agony as a trap was forming around her. It was the same white sphere that was used to trap Yona and Theo. Now the pig was laughing maniacally as he came closer to the fox, telling her that the offer to work with him was still open. But as the fox remained persistent, the pig decided to give her some time because the offer was not a joke. As the scene shifts, we come to the 99th floor once again, where the Rabbit Harvest Festival was going on. As the Harvest Festival began, the energy of abundance was overflowing, and all the creatures, along with Sei-June and Theo, were happy that they were able to witness such an energetic festival. Even Bad Bat was surprised, as he was the new member of the team. The baby bear was energetic too, feeling as if something was making him overflow with energy. Sei-June received another notification window stating that the special quest was completed and that he had successfully held the Harvest Festival. Finally, the rewards would be given. Just then, a queen bee flew towards Sei-June and came near his head. The boy wondered what it was, but as he turned around, he saw the Ox King along with multiple other minotaurs approaching insanely close to his farm and calling out his name. The boy was definitely scared by the earthquake-like tremors he was sensing, wondering what it was, while looking at the giant golden carrot with the ribbon in front of them. The Ox King wondered why a giant, delicious-smelling golden grass was floating in the air. Sei-June ignored the dumb question, unable to believe that the king did not even know what a carrot was, while pretending to be happy to see him. Then the cute little frog along with Theo started screaming at the Ox King, wondering how he could speak so informally to the mid-level manager of the Black Tower, who was also the Black Dragon himself. But the Ox King and the other Minotaurs explained to the frog that they were the bosses of the 99th floor, which gave them the authority to talk to the boy like that. Bad Sei-June tried to calm the Ox King down, while the Queen Bee looked a bit scared. The boy told the king that since the 99th floor was finally having its harvest festival of golden carrots, they should go with a cheerful vibe and everyone should enjoy, because the whole floor was overflowing with energy. Hearing that, the female ox realized that this was why she was feeling energetic. The entire 99th floor had multiple street vendors along the way as they celebrated. For Sei-June, this was a surprise, wondering who the street vendors were. As the scene shifts, we see the Ox King, the female ox, and the other creatures, along with their head chairman, Sei-June, reaching a place where the street vendors were present. One of them called out, telling them to come quickly. They were a group of cute-looking tanuki and raccoons, who told everyone that the opportunity of their lifetime had arrived because the mass gang was there on the 99th floor. Looking at these cute little creatures, even Sei-June started smiling, wondering what was going on. Even the golden cat Theo was shocked, because although he was a wandering merchant, he had never seen anything like this before. One of the cute little raccoons explained that it was a long-standing tradition of the Harvest Festival. The mass gang, who were members of the Raccoon Guild, would come to the place where the festival was being held and sell many things to make the festival even more exciting. Theo went closer to one of the raccoons, wondering if they had reported to the Wandering Merchant Association before doing any business. But the raccoon had no idea what the Merchant Association was, because more importantly, it had been a while since they had actually come to the Black Tower for a visit. Sei-June, on the other hand, was shocked when he looked at the item placed in front of him, knowing at a glance that it was a rice cake, and that it was even tasty. And the cute raccoon with the hat saw the opportunity, calling Sei-June a good customer with really good eyes for food. The cute creature further explained that he had just picked it up and that the rice cake was warm and chewy, making it really delicious. And since Sei-June was the tower farmer of the Black Tower, the raccoon was ready to make a special offer, telling Sei-June that if he bought 2 right now, he would get 1 more for free. Looking at such a tempting offer, Sei-June immediately became serious and disagreed with it, shocking the raccoon. But just then, the boy was actually surging with insane energy, telling Garacun to just give him everything that he had, not caring about the money he was going to need, scattering multiple tower coins with the emblems of the Merchant Association on them, even shocking the raccoon with how rich Sei-June actually was. The raccoon collected all the money, not even able to count how many tower coins Sei-June had given, or whether it was the right amount for the rice cakes. It was as if the boy was completely possessed, because for him, having rice cake after so long was like heaven itself, as this was the first rice in such a long time that he had seen. Now Sei-June was calmly blowing hot air off the rice cake and took a small bite, while the baby bear was drooling all over the ground after looking at the squishy little rice cake roll. Then we get to see the diary entry of Sei-June, day 267 on the Black Tower, where he finally gets to taste the beautiful flavor and texture of rice, his face showing the true face of heaven. Even the baby bear was enjoying the whole thing, while Theo turned around, wondering what the chairman was doing. The other rabbits were shopping for cute little shoes and clothes. Meanwhile, Theo, the golden lucky cat, went to a female raccoon who was selling multiple toys that were cute-looking. But then I think you all guessed what was going to happen. Suddenly, Theo made a surprised face as his paws started giving him a tingling sensation once again. After a long while, Theo wondered what it was, knowing that his golden fortune was reacting. The raccoon lady was just waiting for Theo to grab something expensive. Theo came insanely closer and then slammed his paws straight onto one of the cute little toys, telling the lady that this was it and that he was going to buy it no matter what. Even the raccoon lady was surprised, while Theo, being the good cat he was trained to be by Sei-June, wondered if the price was going to be negotiated. We see that in the hands of the cute little cat was actually a key, with the same ribbon as the red ribbon rabbits, along with the same bunny ears engraved on it. As the scene shifts, we see that the baby bear was eating the rice cake and was enjoying the chewy texture along with all the other rabbits, big and small. Even Bat was wondering about what that chewy little thing was. Even the farmer rabbits enjoyed every bite of it, wondering what it was. And the baby bear informed our boy, Sei-June, that this was the first time that he was eating something like this. Even the raccoon friend told everyone that it was chewy and delicious. while Sei-June started opening a jar full of delicious and thick honey. And the baby bear wondered what his dad was doing. His receptors were activated as he started drooling, wondering if it could be exactly what he was thinking. Sei-June was having a content and greedy smile on his face as he opened the honey bottle and dipped a sausage made of rice cake straight into the honey bottle, using a large quantity of it. And then, taking it out, it was gleaming yellowish in the sun. As Sei-June told everyone that they had to have honey with the great rice cake if they wanted to enjoy it to the fullest, even the raccoon friends were shocked, wondering how this recipe was founded. But Sei-June was from Earth, and they used it all the time. The baby bear was not able to stop himself, but the first bite was always reserved for none other than Sei-June himself, who took a bite and then went straight onto cloud 9, knowing that he was in heaven because the sweet and chewy texture altogether was the best texture ever to taste. Sei-June was dancing with the rice cake being shaken violently, and he showed it to the baby bear and the rabbits along with Bat, telling them to try dipping the rice cakes into honey too so that they could enjoy the delicacy. Meanwhile, the raccoon also joined Sei-June, calling him a customer and wondering if the golden seasoning was the almighty seasoning that makes everything tasty. Wondering what it was, but Sei-June told them while shaking the bottle full of thick and juicy liquid that this was called honey, and it was a sweet liquid that bees collect from the flower, sucking them up. Meanwhile, the mother rabbit was also having a taste of it, and everyone else was shocked, wondering how it would taste. Sei-June offered the bottle of honey to the raccoons too, telling them to try dipping the rice cake into it and taste it for themselves. While the mother bear was also sent to heaven, and the baby bear was finally getting all the honey he wanted along with the chewy little thing he was tasting for the first time. The raccoon was actually scared, wondering what the seasoning might be. But then he took some honey straight onto his paws and took a small lick of it to taste it in skepticism. But as soon as he tasted it, he straight up went into heaven. He was hallucinating large honey cubes as he started dipping into them. And then he knew that honey was the greatest and the sweetest thing he would have ever tasted, and it was as if the raccoon was having withdrawal symptoms, knowing that he could never live without honey. From now on, the raccoon started rolling onto the floor, wondering how something could taste so great and how it could be so sweet. Because honey was a natural sweetener with all the harmful things removed, and it was even fragrant. Sei-June was proudly smiling as if he did something great. Finding honey on the 99th floor of the tower, even the raccoons realized that it was undoubtedly going to taste good whenever the honey was eaten with the rice cake that they had made. But the problem was that Sei-June had brought all the rice cakes, and now the raccoons wondered if they could just try one rice cake dipped in honey to get the flavor. But then Sei-June straight up denied with a devilish smile on his face. The raccoons turned pale, realizing that they would never be able to taste the match which was made in heaven. But now Sei-June wondered if the raccoons were saying that they wanted to take back the rice cake that Sei-June had rightfully brought for them. And besides, the honey they were tasting was really rare, and to get this much honey it takes hundreds of days. The baby bear was shocked, wondering what the tower farmer was telling them, calling him dad and wondering what Sei-June was talking about, because if it was honey then the warehouse they had was overflowing. But before the baby bear could finish anything, he got another rice cake shoved into his mouth to shut him up along with honey, as it was so delicious that he forgot whatever he was saying and started enjoying the rice cake dipped in honey once again. And Sei-June had got nervous for a second, but now he was back on track, telling all the raccoons that if they really wanted to try the rice cakes dipped in honey, then they would have to exchange it for something else. Sei-June smiled as the honey bottle was shining, and the raccoons wondered what they should exchange for getting the delicious taste of this delicacy. But as the scene shifts, we see that one of the raccoons was ready, suggesting to Sei-June that he should get the pride of the raccoons merchant group. And the guild leader started giving Sei-June thick white liquid, and I know what you are all thinking, but it is not that. It was rice in liquid form, which was also known as Korean rice wine. This was a tasty traditional wine that was made out of rice, and Sei-June immediately started screaming while the baby bear wondered what rice wine was. But Sei-June knew about how much of a delicacy it was, wondering if the raccoon was going to sell some wine too, if it meant for them getting the rice cake and honey combo. But Sei-June knew that he could not just give away his position like that, knowing that he would have to stay calm for negotiation. But the raccoon was already shocked, wondering how Sei-June knew about it, because it was a mysterious beverage that their guild had made with their own secret recipe. But Sei-June smiled, telling the raccoon that he knew the recipe all too well because it was a kind of alcohol that was brewed with yeast made from fermented rice. The raccoon was all shocked, wondering how a mere human knew about this. But they all realized that Sei-June was no ordinary customer, and they would have to deal with him while being really careful. But now Sei-June was playing his trump card once again and taking out the honey and wondering what he should do, because the honey he had was very rare and he felt like he would be losing out if he were to exchange it for the rice wine. Now the raccoons were really making sad faces, and now even I am feeling bad for them. But business is important for Sei-June, so he was not going to melt. But then Sei-June calmed down, thinking that he was going to be generous, getting ready to trade 1 jar of honey for 1 bottle of rice wine. While the baby bear wondered how his father was able to do such a thing with honey, which was really abundant in their warehouse. But finally, the deal was sealed, and both the raccoon and our boy signed the deal with a handshake, getting ready to supply it. And finally, the raccoons were ready to taste the delicious-looking rice cake with the combination of thick and juicy honey. All of them tasted it and were sent to heaven once again, tasting something truly delicious and out of this world. They all were in their imaginations, mixing the rice along with the honey, knowing that it had a chewy texture and savory flavor along with even fragrant sweetness, with no artificial things at all. The raccoon knew that it was the best combination he had ever tasted in all the towers that he had visited before. But Sei-June let in a trade secret, telling the raccoon leader that they should try the honey because it would go absolutely crazy if eaten with grilled rice cakes. And hearing that, the raccoon wondered if Sei-June would like a cup of rice wine too. The boy smiled and kept calm, while deep inside he wondered how long it had been since he had some wine, and that too the traditional one. He got ready to taste a bit of the rice wine. But as the baby bear started jumping and begging for the white liquid too, Sei-June disagreed, telling the baby bear that wine would be given to him only after he became a fully grown adult. The baby bear was making a cute pouting face because he was denied something that looked so delicious. But now Sei-June had a taste, but just then the whole sky darkened as a grumpy voice wondered if someone had taken the name of rice wine. Just when Sei-June was going to taste it, he stood frozen like a stone, as in reality a giant stone-like creature descended, and it was none other than Kaiser who was controlling the giant black dragon statue. It was then that he descended, and the whole ground cracked, and everyone else was shocked, especially the raccoon guild who had never seen the stone pillars before. They were completely turned pale, wondering what they would do, seeing their end as it was the black dragon descending. But Sei-June was not that afraid, just nervous, wondering what Kaiser was doing at the festival. But the black dragon just told the farmer that as someone had talked about alcohol, he could not resist and came there. Sei-June explained that he was trading his honey for the rice wine with the raccoon merchant group right there. And listening to that, the black dragon immediately realized that the raccoon guild were the ones from the Golden Tower. Sei-June was shocked by knowing the true location of the raccoon guild. While the cute little creatures were shaking, telling the black dragon that he was indeed correct and asking for forgiveness if they had committed any kind of discourtesy. But the black dragon smiled as he told the raccoons to relax because they did not do any type of discourtesy. Because the master of the Golden Tower was an old drinking buddy of Kaiser, and he was happy to see the rice wine once again. And if it was the stuff from the Golden Tower, it was definitely trustworthy. Hearing that, the raccoons were somewhat relaxed, coming closer to the black dragon statue with a giant pot full of rice wine, asking the black dragon if he would like to try this as well. But Kaiser started talking to Sei-June, telling him that he was certainly doing well as the middle-level tower manager, because it had been so long since the harvest festival was held like this in the Black Tower. So now the dragon was laughing loudly, which was enough to send earthquakes down the 99th floor, while the dragon thanked Sei-June, offering him to have a drink together. And then both of them had their cheers while Sei-June nervously held the cup with the rice wine. But as soon as Kaiser wanted to have a drink, he was suddenly stopped by a system notification by none other than the dragon Lady Eileen. And now the grandfather was nervous once again, wondering what the matter was and why his pretty granddaughter was calling him. But the dragon lady wondered if it was time for her grandfather to be drinking when he had another task that the lady had asked him about just then. The black dragon realized that he had momentarily forgotten about it. But then Eileen let out a disappointed sigh, deciding to do it herself. But Kaiser was as afraid of Eileen as ever, telling her that he was going to do it right away and that he wanted his granddaughter to not block him. Hearing this, Sei-June was quite shocked, wondering what was going on. And Kaiser turned towards our boy, telling him that he had to go. But Sei-June stopped the dragon midway, telling him to have a safe trip, as he would make sure to save Kaiser's share of the rice wine. Then the stone dragon statue started flying above the ground, telling Sei-June that he was really the best tower farmer, taking off with such intensity that it was as if all the cute little creatures were going to fly away in the air. And Sei-June was somehow able to withstand the pressure. As the black dragon was gone, the raccoons were taking a sigh of relief for real this time. And one of them thought that his heart was going to drop, because they would have never thought that they would meet Sir Black Dragon on the Black Tower themselves. But just then, Sei-June made another tempting offer to the raccoons, telling them that he was going to buy everything that the whole raccoon guild had on them, if he got all the information that they had about the Golden Tower. As the scene shifts, we see that the princess, along with Iona and the Black Rabbit, was back on the 99th floor as the rabbit told her to stay strong. But the princess could not believe that Grid had been released, though she was sure that the pig was definitely going to pay for his evil deeds. Still, she wondered how this was going to happen. But Iona smiled, telling the princess that Grid would be placed under strict surveillance and would undergo a thorough investigation. And Iona was sure that she was not going to let the pig slip away next time. The princess turned around as the Black Rabbit nodded, happy that everyone was there to support her. But more importantly, she was sensing a large amount of energy on the 99th floor, wondering who it belonged to. As she looked ahead, she saw that multiple minotaurs were having the best time using the wine that was created from rice. They were all acting weirdly after drinking it because they were really light drinkers, feeling good with only one sip but wanting to drink more and more. The princess wondered what in the world was happening with them. Then we see Theo coming behind them, happy that they were back on the 99th floor. Everyone turned toward the golden merchant cat, and Iona asked him why it felt like mana was overflowing on the 99th floor, because even the minotaurs were acting energetic, as if they were in a completely different world. Looking at the giant creatures dancing together, Theo explained to the newcomers that while they were gone, the Harvest Festival of Abundance had finally begun. All three were shocked, wondering what the Harvest Festival of Abundance was. The scene then shifts to the Raccoon Guild members once again, who introduced themselves as the Guild from the Golden Tower. They explained that the Golden Tower was ruled by a giant great golden dragon, a female named Artemis. The items they had brought to the Black Tower were harvested by the tower farmer who was favored by Artemis inside the Golden Tower. Her name was Cecilia, and she was the creator of all those things. We see that this tower farmer had a somewhat hidden identity, but from her ears we could tell that she was an elf. Sei-June was surprised that there were other tower farmers in other towers too, wondering if he could possibly get some rice seedlings from Cecilia. But the raccoons from the guild cutely wondered what a seedling was. Sei-June explained that the young sprouts of rice that grow are called seedlings, and if they did not have seedlings, then even normal seeds could work. If they had those, they could grow rice in the Black Tower too, making it easy and efficient for both towers. The leader of the Raccoon Guild realized this and told Sei-June that he would definitely let Cecilia know about it and promised to bring some when he got the chance at the next Harvest Festival. Sei-June wondered how long it would be until the next Harvest Festival. But the Raccoon Guild informed him that they could only move to another tower when the portal opened during the Harvest Festival. Hearing that, Sei-June felt a little sad, wondering when the next festival would be and how long it would take. Just then, behind him, a golden shimmer of light began to emanate, and the baby bear was the first to spot it. We learned that it was the giant carrot that was responsible for the Harvest Festival of Abundance, and it was now glowing with a golden color. At that moment, a system notification told Sei-June that the first competition of the Harvest Festival would be held shortly and was about to begin. Everyone should gather in front of the red-ribboned giant carrot altar. Sei-June wondered what the carrot harvest contest was, but the minotaurs were not hesitant at all. They grabbed the black rabbit thief and the others in their giant hands and rushed over, drawn by the sweet smell. Both the baby bear and Sei-June were shocked to see this, not even able to clearly see what the minotaurs were holding, wondering what the ox king had in his hands. The scene then shifts to the giant golden carrot, shimmering with golden light and surrounded by a pinkish haze. Sei-June finally arrived, and when he reached the farm, he was shocked to the core to see that all the crops were ready to be harvested once again, even though he was sure he had finished harvesting yesterday. He wondered how all the carrots had grown back in less than 24 hours. But the former rabbits knew that it was because of the golden carrot altar that the entire area was turning into a carrot field. Everyone else stared at it in awe as the system notification popped up, telling everyone that a special reward would be given for 10 minutes to the one who gathered the most carrots. And now everyone was ready, along with the rabbits, the baby bear, the wolves, and the minotaurs. Sei-June was hanging out with the queen bee, deciding to give it a shot since there was a reward. He got ready and asked the minotaurs if everyone was ready, and the ox king was also fired up, knowing they were the ones who were going to get the most rewards. Meanwhile, the cute raccoons from the Raccoon Guild were acting as cheerleaders, holding multiple musical instruments as they danced around, telling everyone to stay strong. Even Theo was cheering for the Tower Farmer chairman, deciding to do his best, but Yuna wondered why Theo was not participating at all. Theo clarified that he was a wandering cat merchant and not a farmer. Theo was shocked when Bad Pat came near them, wondering why the three of them were not out enjoying the festival after coming back from the court. But Yuna explained that they were not in the mood to enjoy the harvest festival right now. She said that since she was not able to do anything, she felt disappointed because they needed to come up with the next plan quickly, as the filthy pig grid had been released once again. Then a green light started shimmering all around the 99th floor. Theo and the others looked at the golden carrot as it started glowing light green, signaling the start of the contest. Now everyone was ready to run the race while harvesting the carrots, witnessing the festival with their own eyes. Sei-June and the farmer rabbits were pulling 2 carrots at once with insane speed, while the queen bee was also helping. Sei-June realized that he could now complete the quest he had received for harvesting 100,000 times while also enjoying the harvest festival, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. But then we saw all the minotaurs doing nothing but jumping on the ground and body slamming it so that all the carrots popped out due to brute force. Sei-June thought it was cheating as carrots flew everywhere, and desperation showed on his face. Then the baby bear transformed back into his giant form, knowing that he was not going to let his dad lose. The giant baby bear slammed 1 foot onto the farm, sending countless carrots flying. The impact was so devastating that the ground cracked, and carrots flew everywhere like meteorites. 1 spinning carrot knocked the little hamster down to the ground. Theo and the princess were shocked by what was happening. Theo rushed over, wondering if the hamster was okay. Yuna, still teary-eyed, put on a brave front and told Theo she was not scared at all because she was the head of the Wizard Association of the Tower named Yuna. Hearing that, the princess burst into laughter and the black rabbit turned toward her, realizing that she was finally smiling. He was happy to see his crush smile. The princess apologized, saying she did not mean to laugh, but then she thought that they should not be the only ones feeling down. Everyone else had set aside their worries and was enjoying the harvest festival, so she told everyone that she was fine and that they should enjoy the festival to the fullest. Yona smiled as well. The scene then shifted to another part of the farm, where the baby bear and the ox king were racing each other. The ox king refused to lose, staking his honor as the boss of the 99th floor, but the baby bear knew victory was his since they were working as a team. Suddenly, both of them began glowing with golden psychic energy and started floating into the air. The raccoons cheered in confusion as the baby bear and the ox king grew terrified, thinking they might fall at any moment. Then they saw that all the harvested carrots were also being lifted. Sei-June and the others were trapped in the same golden aura, wondering what was happening. It was not the golden carrot, it was Yona. Her staff glowed with shimmering gold as she used anti-gravity magic. Yona explained that because the entire floor was overflowing with the mana of abundance, such magic was possible. She lifted every carrot on the farm, along with everyone caught in the spell. As all the carrots were gathered in midair, the contest ended, and the system notification announced that first place belonged to Yuna, with approximately 3,000 carrots. and the second place was Baby Bear, while the third place was the Ox King. Sei-June slammed down onto the ground, whining about how this was completely unfair. But Baby Bear shrank back to his usual size and happily told the hamster that it was really fun and that he wanted to do it again sometime. Theo was also impressed by the cute hamster and praised her once more, telling her that she was amazing. Hearing that made Yona blush. As the scene shifted, Sei-June thought that maybe he should learn magic too, because then the competition would be a bit more fair. Meanwhile, the princess and the black rabbit were laughing together as the golden carrot shimmered in the air, preparing for the second contest. But then the scene shifted to a dark and ominous place. A blue-colored portal opened, and we saw Eileen standing there, chained and wearing the restraints like armor. Her grandfather asked her if she was ready to receive it. Eileen knew that if her grandfather was going to do it, it had to be during the Harvest of Abundance festival, because the 99th floor was overflowing with high-level energy. Kaiser told his granddaughter that he was going to directly cast polymorph using the device he possessed. Then he activated the machine, and Eileen began struggling as massive power surged through her body. Kaiser asked anxiously if she was all right, but Eileen refused to stop, thinking only about Sei-June and how she would finally be able to meet him. Slowly, her body began to change. Her silhouette shifted, becoming taller, more refined, and curvier, the outline of a beautiful woman forming as the transformation continued. The scene opens with a wine glass smashing against the floor, thrown in a surge of anger. The camera widens to reveal the culprit, a fox identical in species to Zaref. His face is drained of color, eyes trembling with shock as he demands an explanation. Turning sharply toward his subordinates, he presses them for answers, barely containing the storm in his voice. The report comes quickly. The deputy director has been killed and Zaref has disappeared. The body was discovered in a garbage pit near a village on the 55th floor, executed with a single precise strike to the back of the chest. This fox is Zaref's father. Fear and rage clash within him as he orders an immediate search, declaring that Zaref is the only family he has left. For a brief moment his voice falters, but he steadies himself and demands to know who is responsible. One subordinate explains that Zaref had been relentlessly tracking Greed. On the day she vanished, she personally told him she would follow Greed to gather decisive evidence, convinced he would eventually slip and expose himself. After she left, she was never seen again. When the subordinate later went to the 55th floor, he found only her absence and the deputy director's corpse. The revelation ignites a violent killing intent in Zaref's father, yet he reins it in through sheer will. He calls for Inspector Vega and orders him to summon the Merchant Association, the Wizard Association, and every major power for an emergency meeting. He declares that anyone bold enough to target his daughter will face brutal consequences. The story then sharply shifts on the 99th floor farm. Sei-June stands stunned, staring at a reward he has just received. It turns out to be a carrot, the prize from the recent harvest competition where Yona gathered an overwhelming number of carrots and secured first place. Instead of keeping it, she casually hands the reward to him. Perplexed, Sei-June questions why she would give away something she earned through her own effort. Yona simply replies that she does not like carrots and that he should take it instead. Though slightly suspicious, Sei-June finally accepts the carrot and thanks her, still studying it carefully as if sensing something unusual. Soon after, the system reveals the truth. The carrot is no ordinary vegetable, but a magically enhanced reward obtained from the harvest event. When the system explained that the carrot would permanently increase magic power and agility, Sei-June immediately realized how dangerous it was. Holding such a legendary item, he couldn't believe Yona had simply handed it over. For a moment, he even admired her generosity, thinking that despite her small size, she had a surprisingly big heart. He imagined the taste, something sweet, crisp, and heroic. That illusion shattered the moment he noticed everyone staring at the carrot like starving predators. Baby Bear was drooling because he loved eating anything, and the husband rabbit was drooling even harder because, naturally, rabbits adored carrots. The two raccoons behind him also looked ready to pounce. Feeling awkward, Sei-June brought the carrot closer so Baby Bear and the rabbit could smell it first. The instant they caught a whiff, their expressions froze. Their eyes dulled, their faces twisted in silent horror, and they stiffened like statues traumatized by a single sniff. Sei-June blinked in confusion while Baby Bear suddenly turned away and began whistling, pretending nothing had happened. He casually claimed that his father should eat the carrot instead to grow stronger, insisting he was already powerful enough. The excuse sounded logical, but his face betrayed him completely. Realizing something was wrong, Sei-June asked why they were reacting so strangely. Baby Bear continued whistling and refused to answer, acting like a guilty culprit avoiding interrogation. At that moment, the Red Ribbon Princess excitedly declared that a legendary Harvest Festival reward must be incredible, while the Black Warrior Rabbit eagerly anticipated how strong Sei-June would become after eating it. Their expectations made it impossible for him to refuse. Under everyone's hopeful gaze, Sei-June finally steeled himself. He closed his eyes and took a bite as if preparing for a noble sacrifice. The moment he swallowed, his body reacted violently. A dark aura seemed to leak from his mouth, his face turned pale, and his eyes lost their vitality entirely. The taste was indescribably awful, far beyond anything he had imagined, but he forced himself to keep eating because everyone was watching. He maintained a heroic smile while suffering internally, chewing through each bite like a man enduring torture. Baby Bear nervously encouraged him not to vomit, clearly terrified the carrot might otherwise end up being forced onto him. 5 long minutes later, Sei-June finally finished it. He stood there stiff and lifeless, as if his soul had temporarily left his body. At that moment, the system notification appeared, confirming that he had successfully consumed the magical carrot and that his agility had permanently increased by 10 points. Baby Bear bounced around excitedly, saying he still couldn't believe his dad had actually eaten that horrifying carrot. The husband rabbit also looked deeply relieved. Both of them were genuinely happy. While he was still processing that emotional damage, a sudden bright light burst forth and caught everyone off guard. Sei-June was about to complain that after enduring such a disgusting experience, he at least deserved something tasty, but the light instantly stole everyone's attention. Looking up, he noticed the golden carrot floating in the air, shining even more intensely than before. Sei-June stood frozen beside the raccoons and the rest of his monster family, while the Ox King watched confidently as usual. Everyone stared at the glowing carrot. Sei-June quickly understood what this meant. This was clearly the announcement of the second competition. He straightened up, forcing himself to regain his composure, and confidently declared that he would win this round. Then, baskets suddenly began appearing on the ground one after another. Thousands of carrots lay scattered everywhere. Sei-June stared at the overwhelming sight in confusion, wondering why there were so many carrots. The system notification appeared and revealed the rules of the new competition. It was a challenge to see who could eat the most carrots. His expression went completely blank. Slowly, he looked around at the enormous creatures standing beside him, massive bodies, gigantic mouths, and bottomless appetites. All eyes shifted toward the Ox King. His mouth was already watering like a waterfall as he confidently declared that he would win this competition. At his bold declaration, the Minotaurs erupted in loud cheers. Sei-June tried to calm him down, but the Ox King was unstoppable. Striding toward Yona, he mocked her small size, calling her a tiny creature who could never out-eat him. He laughed and reminded her that although she had won before, she could eat as many carrots as she wanted this time and still wouldn't stand a chance. Hearing this, Yona's pride was wounded and irritation quickly replaced her calm demeanor. She angrily shouted back. Theo finally stepped forward. He gently told her that she didn't need to force herself into a competition that clearly didn't suit her. Not everyone had to excel at everything, and that didn't make them any less impressive. While she struggled internally, the Ox King stood proudly nearby, waving his hand as if victory was already his. The Minotaurs roared with excitement, loudly declaring that this was the moment to showcase their race's unmatched appetite, and it was none other than Mother Bear making her long-awaited appearance. She stopped near the floating golden carrot as if she naturally owned the entire floor. She replied casually that she had simply been sleeping when all the noise and chaos woke her up, so she came to see what was happening. The situation was quickly explained to her: the Harvest Festival, the competitions, and how the winner would receive the prize. Baby Bear was the most excited. The moment he saw Mother Bear, he rushed over, overflowing with enthusiasm and stories to tell. Before Mother Bear could even respond properly, a strange white aura suddenly appeared from behind, drawing everyone's attention. Both Mother Bear and the Ox King turned toward the source. From the glowing light, the Jewel King arrived, the boss of the 57th floor, looking unusually excited as he patted his stomach and declared that he would also participate. He claimed he was starving and would definitely win this competition. Watching them, Sei-June instantly realized once again that he had no chance of winning this contest. It felt like the result was already decided before it even began. Soon, the golden carrot emitted another green glow, and the countdown began. Mother Bear, Jewel King, and Ox King all prepared themselves, and everyone assumed these three giants would dominate the competition. The countdown reached 0, and the system declared the competition had begun. Instantly, Mother Bear, Ox King, and Jewel King started devouring carrots at terrifying speeds. The Ox King began aggressively, grabbing over 20 carrots in each hand and eating them. His explosive start drew loud cheers from the Minotaurs, who were convinced their king was unstoppable. But the cheering gradually faded when something completely unexpected happened. Instead of carefully picking carrots, he lifted an entire basket, flipped it over his head, and began eating directly from it like it was a bowl of cereal, one basket after another. At the same time, the Jewel King casually stretched out his tongue and swallowed more than 50 carrots in a single motion, making it look effortless. Witnessing this, even the Minotaurs began to doubt their earlier confidence. One of them whispered in disbelief. A carrot got lodged in his throat, and he began coughing violently, his eyes bulging as he struggled to breathe, frantically asking for water like his life was flashing before him. While Ox King fought for survival, Baby Bear and Jewel King continued devouring baskets of carrots as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The scene felt completely absurd. Baby Bear focused solely on eating, Jewel King clapped enthusiastically like a cheerleader, and Raccoon danced in the background, adding a strangely wholesome festival vibe to what looked like a deadly eating contest. Ox King's condition only worsened. Still choking and coughing, he clearly looked out of the competition. The Minotaurs rushed in to rescue their king, bringing water and helping him like a medical emergency team. Meanwhile, the others kept eating without pause. 2 minutes passed, then 3, and finally the competition ended. Mother Bear's stomach had nearly doubled in size as she relaxed on the ground like a satisfied queen. Jewel King also looked extremely pleased, his stomach swollen from overeating. On the other hand, Ox King sat nearby, exhausted and unconscious, completely defeated by both carrots and humiliation. Bear secured first place, Jewel King came in second, but the biggest surprise was third place going to Chubby Rabbit. Everyone froze in disbelief. No one had even noticed when he joined the competition. The realization slowly sank in as they observed his round stomach. Sei-June congratulated Mother Bear at first, but when he heard Chubby Rabbit's ranking, he was genuinely stunned. Ox King was crushed by the result. Losing to such a small creature shattered his pride completely, leaving him too ashamed to even lift his head. Watching his defeat, Iona couldn't help but laugh and mock him, reminding him that he had earlier belittled smaller creatures for their eating capacity. At last, it was time for the prize distribution. A shiny object appeared in her hand, drawing Sei-June's curiosity. He eagerly wondered what reward she had received, but the moment Mother Bear looked at it, her expression turned lifeless as if her soul had left her body. Sei-June immediately sensed danger. If Mother Bear reacted like that, the reward was probably another terrible food item. When he asked about it, she simply shouted in disgust and hurled the object straight toward him without explanation. The item flew through the air at terrifying speed like a lethal projectile. Thea instantly panicked and hid behind Sei-June. After eating the agility carrot earlier, Sei-June's reflexes had improved significantly, and he managed to catch the incoming object with ease. Slowly opening his eyes, he realized he was still alive. Theo also peeked out cautiously, and both of them examined what he had caught. It looked like a potato. Confused yet curious, Sei-June held it up, and then the smell hit him. A horrifying demonic stench seeped out from the potato, announcing that the item was an agility elixir created by the Blue Tower farmer Zelga. Consuming it would increase agility by 1.5 times. Its grade was C, and it would remain effective for 100 years. Theo finally couldn't endure it anymore. He jumped off Sei-June's shoulder and retreated quickly, shouting that the smell was so awful his nose might rot off completely. Husband Rabbit and Baby Bear also covered their noses and sat down, swearing they had never encountered something so unbearable in their lives. Even Mother Bear, who had thrown the item at him, failed to withstand the stench. The moment it reached her, her face turned pale. She abruptly claimed she had urgent matters to attend to and fled at full speed, clearly escaping not from danger but from the smell itself. Sei-June called after her, asking what he should do with the reward since it had originally belonged to her, but she never responded. She simply vanished, leaving him alone with the terrifying potato. Sei-June stared at it in disbelief, thinking this reward felt more like a punishment. Theo, now keeping a safe distance, urged him to either throw it away or eat it quickly so the nightmare could finally end. Baby Bear agreed, insisting he could not endure the smell any longer. However, Sei-June hesitated. He didn't want to eat it, but he also couldn't bring himself to waste such a valuable elixir. After thinking carefully, he decided to treat it like medicine rather than food. Closing his eyes, he gathered his courage and took a bite. A strange sensation immediately spread through his body like an electric current. He swallowed with difficulty, nearly choking from the awful texture. For a moment he looked as though he might collapse on the spot, but then his expression changed. To his surprise, the taste was not nearly as horrible as expected. In fact, it was strangely sweet. Confused, he blinked several times, realizing the inside did not match the terrifying smell at all. Encouraged by this discovery, Sei-June forced himself to finish the entire elixir. But the real problem began the moment he was done. A strange dizziness overcame him, and his vision started warping. The world around him felt unstable. The spinning sensation intensified rapidly. He could no longer clearly see anyone around him, and his balance completely faltered. In the fatting darkness, he heard distant voices calling his name. Gradually, those voices became clearer, and he realized they belonged to his monster companions. When he opened his eyes again, he was already lying on the ground, surrounded by Theo, Ox King, Baby Bear, Red Ribbon Princess, Yona, and the others. Theo quickly explained what had happened, and Sei-June soon understood that everything he experienced, floating, falling, and sinking into darkness, had simply been hallucinations caused by the elixir. It hadn't been a dream at all, just the side effects of that cursed potato. Still, he didn't want to admit it. He tried to act normal, attempting to say that nothing serious had happened and that he was completely fine after eating it. However, the moment he opened his mouth to speak, a dense fog burst out like a curse being released. Theo and husband Rabbit nearly vomited on the spot. In a panic, Theo leapt forward and clamped both paws over Sei-June's mouth. He urgently warned him to keep his mouth closed, explaining that the smell was now literally coming from his breath, and that if he kept talking, everyone nearby would faint or throw up. Sei-June found himself trapped in an absurdly awkward position. Seeing this, Theo began talking non-stop, explaining that while Sei-June had been unconscious, a lot had happened. Most importantly, the next event of the Harvest Festival had already begun. Sei-June was shocked by this revelation and wondered how long he had been out. Fortunately, he didn't even need to ask. The moment he looked up, he saw the golden carrot glowing with a new blue aura. Soon after, the system announced that the final event of the Harvest Festival, the ball, would begin shortly. Everyone stood there in confusion, trying to process how a harvest competition had suddenly turned into a romantic ball. Theo returned to Sei-June's shoulder while husband Rabbit, Baby Bear, Jewel King, Red Ribbon Princess, Black Warrior Rabbit, Yona, and the others looked around, unsure what to expect next. Then even stranger things began to happen. Several rabbits suddenly appeared near the golden carrot. A flying rabbit arrived first, followed by a sleek black rabbit, and then a white rabbit with wings like an angel. The winged rabbit began playing a sitar, filling the air with beautiful, soothing music. Soon another gray rabbit appeared holding an unfamiliar instrument, and finally a chubby white rabbit joined in, beating a drum with perfect rhythm. Together, their music created an overwhelmingly romantic atmosphere, while Red Ribbon Princess gazed around in awe, saying the scene was incredibly beautiful and unlike anything she had ever experienced. Seeing her so happy made Black Warrior Rabbit blush shyly, deeply moved by her childlike smile. Sei-June also found himself enjoying the atmosphere. Without thinking, he slightly opened his mouth and whispered a soft wow. Unfortunately, that single word was enough for the dreadful smell to leak out again. Theo reacted instantly, slapping both paws over Sei-June's mouth before the stench could spread. Meanwhile, the raccoon leader and his companions stepped forward and finally realized that this was no longer a competitive event, but a true festival meant for everyone to enjoy peacefully. As the rabbit angels danced in the air, their music shaped the surroundings into a magnificent ballroom-like hall, transforming the entire space into a dreamy stage where the final celebration of the Harvest Festival was about to begin. None of them fully understood what they were supposed to do in such a place. Even the Ox King, who had spent his entire life fighting, stood frozen in amazement. To his own surprise, he actually wanted to dance, even though he had never done so in his life. Sei-June noticed this change and felt happy seeing the usually fierce Ox King in such a relaxed mood. But it wasn't just him. Everyone present seemed to feel an uncontrollable urge to move along with the rhythm. At that moment, Cow number 5 finally appeared. She greeted ox number 4 warmly, which instantly made him light up with joy. She looked slightly surprised to see him too, but the next second she stepped forward confidently, extended her hand, and invited him to dance with her. Ox number 4 froze in shock. He had always secretly liked her, yet never imagined she would be the one to approach first. His nervousness only grew when she gently grabbed his hand. Stammering, he admitted that he didn't know how to dance and had never tried before. But cow number 5 simply gazed into his eyes with calm confidence and pulled him toward the stage anyway. Embarrassed but unable to resist, he followed along. Soon, the two of them began dancing, and their friends cheered loudly, praising ox number 4's moves. Sei-June watched quietly with a gentle smile. However, Theo noticed that behind that smile, Sei-June looked slightly lonely. Everyone else had found a partner and was dancing together, but Sei-June stood alone. Theo approached him and asked why he seemed sad. Sei-June was about to reply, but Theo quickly covered his mouth again to prevent the dreadful smell from escaping. Then Theo confidently declared that he already understood everything. Sei-June wanted to dance but was holding himself back for no reason. Sei-June became nervous the instant he stepped onto the stage. He admitted that he had never danced before and felt awkward doing it alone in front of everyone. As soon as he appeared, the crowd paused and watched him, which made the atmosphere even more uncomfortable. While he hesitated, a faint hint of his terrible breath leaked out again, causing Theo, Yona, and Baby Bear to panic. Theo instantly jumped up and clamped Sei-June's mouth shut once more, begging him not to release that cursed smell in the middle of such a romantic setting. Then Theo gave him a heartfelt speech, reminding him that ever since arriving in the tower, Sei-June had never truly rested. This festival was a rare chance for him to relax and enjoy himself. Hearing such mature words from Theo made Sei-June's eyes well up with emotion, as if his little companion had suddenly grown wiser. Feeling encouraged, he gently set Theo down and finally prepared to dance seriously. Theo and Baby Bear watched excitedly, hoping to see something amazing, while Yona observed from the side. However, the moment Sei-June began dancing, the result was completely unexpected. His movements were awkward and bizarre, switching between imaginary partner steps, awkward solo moves, and random gestures that didn't match the rhythm at all. Sei-June, completely unaware, believed he was doing well and enjoyed himself, but the reality was far less graceful. Behind him, even the rabbit angels looked horrified, as though they had witnessed something unimaginable. Theo eventually couldn't bear watching any longer. He leapt up, landed in Sei-June's arms, and burst into tears while apologizing for forcing him to dance. Theo admitted that the dance was so terrible that he would rather endure the rotten breath again than watch those moves any longer. The harsh truth struck Sei-June like a fatal blow, leaving him frozen in shock with a completely broken expression. Later, Sei-June sat sadly in a corner while Theo quietly comforted him, regretting his blunt honesty. Baby Bear jokingly commented that it looked like Sei-June might never open his mouth again after that humiliation. As the focus shifted away from him, attention moved to Red Ribbon Princess and Black Warrior Rabbit. Gathering all his courage, the shy rabbit finally stepped forward with trembling hands and invited her to be his dance partner. The moment he spoke, Red Ribbon Princess's heart raced wildly, but instead of accepting immediately, she gently refused. It was not because she didn't want to dance, but because she could not allow herself to enjoy peace while her people were still suffering. She explained that the rabbit families on the 55th floor were living under greed's cruel rule, and she could not truly smile while they endured such hardship. As their princess, she believed it would be wrong to celebrate while her kingdom remained in pain. If she chose happiness now, she felt she would no longer deserve the title of princess. While she tried to maintain her composure, Black Warrior Rabbit quietly reached out and held her hand. The sudden touch made her even more flustered. He admitted that he had long noticed how often the princess looked depressed, even when she tried to hide it behind a brave smile. Seeing her carry that sadness alone hurt him deeply, and he confessed that it made his chest ache every time he witnessed it. His words were not flattery, but a sincere confession, revealing just how closely he had been watching her struggles. Red Ribbon Princess grew even more embarrassed, realizing how much he cared. Then he said something that shattered her remaining defenses. He declared that the one who should be worried was greed, because they would surely reclaim the Red Ribbon Kingdom someday. Until that day came, he vowed that he would stand as her knight and protect her smile. The sincerity of his promise melted her heart completely. Tears gathered in her eyes despite her attempt to remain composed. She quickly wiped them away, embarrassed to cry in front of everyone, but her smile finally returned. With a soft nod, she accepted his invitation to dance. The moment she agreed, the entire stage reacted as though the festival itself had been waiting for that answer. The music slowed and softened, becoming more romantic and gentle. The angelic rabbits circled gracefully, forming a glowing space at the center of the stage. Red Ribbon Princess and Black Warrior Rabbit stepped into that space, held each other's hands, and began dancing together. Watching them, the crowd smiled warmly, and even Iona's usually mischievous expression softened with quiet satisfaction. Soon after, Theo made his own bold move. He stepped toward Iona, stretched out his tiny paws seriously, and invited her to dance. Iona blushed instantly, then smiled shyly, both happy and embarrassed at the same time. She accepted his invitation, and the atmosphere became even warmer as the two began dancing together. The festival then blossomed into a lively scene where everyone danced at once, as if the tower had forgotten its dangers and turned into a place of celebration. Sei-June watched all of this with a gentle smile, yet a quiet longing lingered in his eyes. He suddenly realized someone was missing. Aylin was not there. He had not seen her at the festival, and the thought made him uneasy. It had also been a long time since she last contacted him. Concern grew in his heart as he wondered if something might be wrong. However, the scene shifted to reveal a stark contrast. Instead of dancing, Aylin lay exhausted on the floor before a machine, her body weak and her breathing heavy. Kaiser watched her with visible worry, stating that this was already her fourth failed attempt at evolution. He warned that if she tried again, her heart might not endure the strain and she could die. He urged her to stop, but Aylin refused. With trembling hands, she forced herself to stand despite the pain, tears streaming down her face. Her determination burned fiercely as she ordered Kaiser to activate the machine one last time. Her voice cracked as she begged him, insisting that she had to succeed no matter what. She cried out that she needed to leave the tower and meet Sei-June again. As the scene shifted, the golden carrot was still floating in the air while Sei-June was busy cutting spring onions. Theo noticed the knife skills of their boy and realized that his abilities had improved significantly. Theo felt happy, knowing that Sei-June had cooked for so many creatures for such a long time. Still, he wondered what Sei-June was preparing now, because it looked like he was being more careful than usual, cutting the vegetables into exact sizes for even cooking. In the background, the clay stove burned steadily while the raccoons watched with happy smiles, looking at the large dish. Sei-June explained that since the harvest festival was almost over, he wanted to make something a little special. Baby Bear became excited at the thought of getting special food. When Sei-June opened the pot and smelled the curry he was making, Baby Bear started twerking happily, knowing it would be delicious. Sei-June then turned toward the scythe rabbit and his brother, who was carrying a large bag. When the rabbit put it down, it was revealed to be long rice cakes he had bought from the raccoon guild. As the rabbit tossed the rice cakes into the air, the scythe rabbit leaped effortlessly and with precise movements and gleaming eyes, sliced them into small, equal pieces. It quickly turned into a game of Fruit Ninja as the rabbit kept throwing rice cakes upward, and the scythe rabbit cut them perfectly into the required sizes. Meanwhile, the chubby rabbit gathered all the pieces neatly into 2 plates. Theo and Baby Bear were both shocked and amazed at the display. Sei-June already knew what the scythe rabbit was capable of, and immediately thanked the chubby rabbit for bringing the plates. He then added the rice cakes into the crimson-red curry he was cooking, while the raccoons watched in awe. They were surprised and wondered if it would taste strange, since they had never heard of boiling rice cakes before. However, Sei-June confidently laughed and told them that the dish he was making was called red rice cake soup, and just by looking at it, it already seemed delicious. As the scene shifted, the dish was revealed to be purple rice cake soup, boiled at high temperature with purple locust meat and detoxifying green onions that could neutralize extreme poison. This prevented the dish from spoiling, significantly improved its taste, and kept the stomach full for 1 hour. The expiration period was 10 days. Sei-June happily stated that his calculations were correct. It was probably the Lunar New Year on Earth right now, and people always ate rice cake soup during the New Year. Since they had rice cakes available, everyone should enjoy the soup together and celebrate the festival. When Sei-June turned around, he saw all the creatures, big and small, smiling happily while the giant carrot still floated in the sky. He had successfully created purple rice cake soup for the first time, and his cooking proficiency level 4 increased significantly. Soon, everyone was sitting around Sei-June as he began handing out large and small cups of soup to Ox King, the raccoons, and the rabbits. Theo patiently waited for his turn while Baby Bear frantically devoured his portion in one go. Mother Rabbit ate calmly while the baby rabbits tried to eat, though they struggled with the dish. Sei-June looked at everyone and felt that it truly felt like a holiday with family gathered together. The raccoons, on the other hand, had never tasted anything this amazing before. They felt the broth was heavenly, and thanks to the carrot garnish, the soup even provided a small agility increase effect. Hearing this, Theo wondered if the raccoons had really liked the soup that much. He walked over to them with a smile and told them that if they wanted, he could sell them both the soup and the ingredients so they could make it themselves. Being traders, the raccoons immediately showed interest in buying it. Theo then asked how much they were willing to pay per serving. They first offered 3 tower coins, but Theo instantly refused, telling them they had poor judgment for goods and that he was slightly disappointed. Calmly, he explained that they would not find anything this delicious that also raised stats anywhere else. Even the raccoons knew that what Theo said was true. Meanwhile, the other rabbits and the Red Ribbon Princess continued enjoying their food. But Sei-June turned toward Theo, wondering what that foolish little cat was doing this time, worried that he might end up making a bad deal. On the other hand, the raccoons were now negotiating fiercely with Theo. They were ready to buy the dish for 5 tower coins per serving and even sweetened the offer by saying they wanted 100 servings. Theo smiled, almost ready to agree to the deal he had made. But Sei-June suddenly shouted at Theo to wait. He told him to just watch and learn from the true master of trade, which of course was none other than Sei-June himself. The raccoons were startled and wondered what was wrong. Sei-June then firmly denied the offer, saying he had no intention of selling the dish at all. The raccoons' faces immediately turned pale. Sei-June explained that they did not have enough rice cakes left, and there was barely enough for everyone present to eat. He had only shared the soup because it was a special day. In reality, with the remaining ingredients, they could only make around 300 servings in the future, making the soup a limited edition item. Hearing this, the raccoons were shocked. They realized they were tasting limited goods and quickly processed the situation in their small merchant brains. Now even more desperate, they wondered if Sei-June truly would not sell it to them. Determined, they immediately raised their offer to 15 tower coins per serving and tried to buy all the future servings at that price. Even Theo was stunned, wondering how the price had inflated so quickly just because of Sei-June's words. Sei-June acted thoughtful for a moment, appearing slightly cheeky as he considered what to do. Then he reached a conclusion and, acting like a benevolent messiah, told the raccoons that since they had come all this way, he would feel bad charging 15 coins. Instead, he offered to sell them 200 servings for 13 tower coins per serving. The raccoons were shocked and began to wonder if Sei-June was truly a god of the tower. But Sei-June continued, saying that instead of money alone, they should trade rice cakes next time and also give tower farmers a small discount in return for his generosity. Theo watched Sei-June in amazement, while the raccoons happily accepted the highly inflated deal and even started dancing among themselves. Sei-June declared that the deal was finalized, and that he would also include some stat-boosting crops as a bonus. Theo called out to Sei-June, realizing how incredible he was and praising him as a true genius of trading. After hearing such praise, Sei-June rubbed his nose proudly and replied that this was nothing. However, just then, a loud burping noise echoed. Sei-June wondered what it was and turned around to see Baby Bear, who looked enormous for his size, with his stomach bulging and floating like a balloon. All the rabbits stared in shock, wondering how much he had eaten to become so round. Theo began shouting at Baby Bear, asking how many bowls he had consumed, since they needed to sell the limited edition rice cake soup. But Sei-June simply smiled and calmly leaned toward Theo, whispering that with the remaining ingredients, they could actually make 500 servings. Theo immediately realized that Sei-June's earlier claim of limited supply had just been a negotiation tactic to raise the price. Then Sei-June turned toward Baby Bear with a slightly displeased expression and apologized to him. The chubby little bear slowly got up, confused about what his father wanted to say. Sei-June then revealed, in a serious tone, that he should have warned him earlier that for every bowl of rice cake soup eaten, 1 year of age would be added. After eating so much, Baby Bear must have aged at least 100 years and become a chubby little grandpa. Hearing this felt like the ground shifted beneath Baby Bear's feet. He immediately burst into tears, crying that he did not want to become older than his mom and dad. Seeing him cry, Sei-June quickly told him it was just a prank and that he should not be upset, even though his stomach was unbelievably full. To cheer him up, Sei-June offered him a rice cake dipped in honey, his favorite snack. Baby Bear immediately started eating again, laughing in relief at the joke. Theo watched in disbelief, wondering if Baby Bear had a bottomless pit for a stomach. But suddenly the scene shifted. The black and white wolf chiefs appeared in front of Yona and the black rabbit. They asked what the matter was, and the white wolf chief explained that the president of the Wandering Merchant Association, Mr. Mason, had urgently summoned all association heads. The reason was grave. The deputy director of the Secret Inspection Bureau had been killed, and his son, Zaref, had been reported missing. Moreover, they suspected that greed was behind everything. Theo was shocked, unable to believe that Zaref was the one who had gone missing. Red Ribbon Princess quickly realized that greed could be behind any hideous incident happening across the floors. The Black Warrior Rabbit clenched his fists, determined to settle matters with greed once and for all. He said he only wanted everyone to stay safe, and if he were allowed to move freely between floors, he would willingly go with them. Red Ribbon Princess felt grateful, realizing how much Sei-June had been thinking about everyone. This time, Theo also insisted on going along. Zaref was a good person and Theo's friend, so if something had happened to him, Theo believed he had to help no matter what. In the end, only the raccoons, Sei-June, and Baby Bear remained on the 99th floor, along with the Ox King and his subordinates, while Theo, the two rabbits, and Yona headed toward the Merchant Association. Sei-June quietly hoped that nothing bad would happen. Just then the Ox King walked up behind him and called out. He informed Sei-June that they would also return to their own territory because the waypoint on the 99th floor had been left unattended for too long. Besides, the blue moon would be arriving soon. Hearing this, Sei-June suddenly realized that he had been so distracted by cooking the rice cake soup that he had completely forgotten about the blue moon. Before leaving, the Ox King warned him to be careful. He said he had sensed unusual energy coming from the southwestern forest. Sei-June simply smiled and replied that if it was just a corrupted ent, they could handle it without any trouble. However, before he could finish his sentence, the Ox King stopped him and clarified that it did not feel like an ent at all. Instead, it was something different, something hot. He could sense the energy of intense flames emanating from the forest. At that moment, deep within the southern forest, a ferocious ant-like creature began emerging from a hole in the ground, radiating a terrifying heat. As the scene shifts, we move inside the cave, where the giant frog king is still in his small, cute form, sleeping soundly while snoring and drooling at the same time. His round body rises and falls peacefully, completely unaware of the tension building outside. Suddenly, a large hand reaches down and shakes him firmly, jolting his tiny body. Startled awake, he struggles to flip himself over due to his plump shape, flailing for a moment before finally managing to look up. Standing before him is none other than Sei-June. Sei-June calmly asks if the frog has been enjoying his stay on the 99th floor. The Frog King immediately straightens himself as much as his small body allows and respectfully addresses Sei-June as the Black Dragon. He asks what the matter is and also wonders where Theo has gone, nodding that the 99th floor feels unusually quiet and empty compared to its usual lively atmosphere. Sei-June explains that Theo has left for another floor while the frog was busy sleeping and drooling without a care in the world. This shocks the Frog King, who grumbles that he was not even invited, but Sei-June ignores the complaint and states that he has an important favor to ask. The Frog King already knows he cannot refuse. Theo serves Sei-June, and the Frog King serves Theo, so the hierarchy between them is obvious. After a brief pause, Sei-June's expression turns serious as he firmly tells the frog that they must begin preparing for the upcoming blue moon. It is then revealed that the harvest festival has finally ended safely. The artisan rabbits have completed an altar for the giant red ribbon carrot, the minotaurs have returned to guard the waypoint, and the raccoon merchant guild has gone back to their usual place in the Golden Tower. The lively celebrations have ended, and calm has returned to the floor. However, despite all of this, no one has actually made preparations for the blue moon that is drawing closer with each passing day. Until now, Eileen, her father Anton, and her grandfather Kaiser had always helped Sei-June and the others endure the blue moon safely. Their presence alone used to give everyone a sense of security. But ever since the harvest festival began, neither Eileen nor Kaiser's fountain statue has appeared on the 99th floor, as if they had completely vanished. Their absence makes the situation far more uncertain and dangerous than before. The Frog King, who has not experienced many blue moons inside the tower, asks if the event is truly that problematic on the 99th floor. Sei-June explains in detail that whenever the blue moon rises, corrupted ents emerge from the western forest. These monsters lose all reason and attack the farm relentlessly. They cannot be communicated with or negotiated with, which means they must always be fought off to protect the crops and the land. Even Baby Bear's mother, the giant bear who rules the western forest, does her best to block and suppress those corrupted creatures. But there is still a chance that some of them might break through and attack during the blue moon. Moreover, what the Minotaur King mentioned earlier is still bothering Sei-June. The king sensed a strange and ominous energy coming from the southwestern forest, something that does not feel like the presence of ordinary ents. This unknown heat and pressure gives Sei-June an uneasy feeling that this blue moon might be different from the previous ones. Sei-June then reflects that until now, he has relied heavily on his tower farmer talent, along with Theo's wealthy farmer talent from the Wizard Association. The Black Warrior Rabbit and the Red Ribbon Princess were also designated as guardians, and together they had fought against various threats that appeared on the 99th floor. But this time, all four of those reliable allies are absent, while the blue moon is still inevitably approaching. Because of that, Sei-June decides to entrust the remaining guardian slot to the Frog King, who is undoubtedly the strongest one currently present on the floor. The cute little frog is stunned when he hears himself being called the strongest, almost unable to believe it, but Sei-June's expression shows that he is completely serious. He says that he will rely on the Frog King's immense power to help defend the farm and stand beside him when the blue moon arrives. The Frog King is deeply moved by this trust and opportunity. His small body begins to glow with a green shimmer, and he gradually transforms back into his usual gigantic form, his presence becoming overwhelming and majestic. This sudden transformation surprises the pure ents and Flamey the apple tree nearby. The Frog King remembers how Sei-June once fought to protect the swamp and the gem frogs, and he knows that such kindness and courage are not small matters. With determination, he vows to repay that grace and promises to lend his full strength, even if his contribution may seem small compared to Sei-June's efforts. Hearing this, Sei-June smiles with relief, feeling reassured to have such a powerful ally by his side for the coming danger. However, just as he begins to relax slightly, Flamey speaks from behind him, her tone filled with worry. She asks what they should do about the blue moon, clearly uneasy about the situation. At first, Sei-June tells her not to worry too much, saying that now they have the reliable Frog King with them, and with her purification powers as a sacred tree, everything should be manageable. But Flamey interrupts him with troubling news. She quietly reveals that for some time now, her roots have been burning and aching deep underground, and the pain has been getting worse with each passing day. Upon hearing this, Sei-June's expression immediately changes, and he is left shocked, wondering how such a thing could be happening and why she had never informed him about it earlier. In response, Flamey explained that she had not mentioned the issue earlier because she did not want to worry Sei-June. However, lately she had been sensing strange disturbances underground, as if countless creatures were moving all at once beneath the soil. Hearing this, Sei-June was deeply shocked. He began to wonder if another type of monster had appeared in addition to the corrupted ents, making the upcoming blue moon even more dangerous than expected. Even though Flamey admitted that she would not be able to contribute much in direct combat, she still cast the flame of protection on Sei-June, asking him to be extremely careful. As Sei-June examined the effects of the protective flame, Baby Bear walked up to him and asked what the plan was and what they were supposed to do next. Sei-June looked toward the other rabbits and bats and realized that whenever the blue moon appeared, many of them became ferocious and lost control. Because of that, he knew he could not allow those who might go berserk to remain outside when the blue moon began, as they could end up attacking the farm itself. With firm resolve, Sei-June decided that he would first scout the western forest. As the scene shifted, the bright sun in the sky began to dim as a dark orb slowly moved toward it, signaling an eclipse. High above, the Red Ribbon Princess noticed the change in the sky and immediately realized that the blue moon was approaching. She worried about whether the 99th floor would be safe without the wolf chiefs, the rabbit guardians, and Iona present. Theo calmed her down, telling her not to worry because Chairman Sei-June was the strongest among them and would surely handle the situation on his own. Theo firmly believed in Sei-June's abilities. The Black Warrior Rabbit also reassured the princess, urging her to focus on the problem right in front of them, which was the situation on the floor of the Red Ribbon Kingdom. Soon, a massive castle came into view. Everyone stared at the royal castle in silence. The wolf chief wondered how long it had been since they last saw it like this. According to Mason, Zaref's father, his son was being held hostage inside that very castle in the Red Ribbon Kingdom. Greed had demanded near unlimited authority from the Merchant Association as ransom for Zaref's release. This blatant threat terrified Mason, and even the Black Warrior Rabbit was furious after hearing it. Iona pointed out that they could not trust the Secret Inspection Bureau either, so they had no choice but to secretly entrust the mission to her and the others. Theo carefully analyzed the situation and concluded that they would have to defeat Greed and rescue Zaref if they wanted to ensure everyone's safety. At the same time, they also needed to free the Red Ribbon Kingdom from the clutches of the greedy tyrant named Greed. From atop a cliff, the group took one last look at the castle before preparing for what was to come. Meanwhile, back on the 99th floor, Sei-June, Baby Bear, and the Frog King headed toward the western forest. When they reached the forest's edge, Baby Bear called out loudly for his mother, signaling that they had arrived. Sei-June felt slightly nervous despite coming here confidently to scout the area. He knew that they should stay close to Mother Bear, as she was the most reliable protector of this forest. Suddenly, a sharp, piercing screech echoed from deep within the dark and gloomy woods. Baby Bear immediately recognized the voice as his mother's and frantically ran toward the sound, fearing she was in danger. Sei-June and the Frog King were startled and tried to stop him and calm him down, but Baby Bear would not listen. Seeing this, Sei-June rushed after him. When Sei-June finally reached the spot, he was utterly shocked by what he saw. Swarming around Mother Bear were numerous red creatures that at first resembled red locusts. However, upon closer inspection, he realized they were actually giant red ants, relentlessly attacking her. One of those creatures suddenly charged up and began spewing flames, forming a large fireball. Mother Bear managed to protect herself from fatal damage, but she was still getting hurt. Sei-June could not believe that these small red creatures were capable of breathing fire, essentially making them literal fire ants. Even the Frog King had never seen anything like them before. Mother Bear struggled to hold her ground, unsure of how to deal with the overwhelming swarm. When she noticed Baby Bear rushing toward her, she became even more alarmed and shouted at him to stay back, warning him that it was too dangerous and that he must not come any closer. She wanted nothing more than for her child to remain safe. But Baby Bear refused to listen. Determined to save his mother, he instantly returned to his usual giant size, and his magical club began extending as well. With a powerful leap, he soared high into the air, shocking Mother Bear, Sei-June, and the Frog King alike as they wondered how Baby Bear intended to handle such a terrifying situation. On the other hand, as Baby Bear launched himself into the air, he began spinning rapidly to gain even more momentum. His speed kept increasing as he prepared his strike, and with a powerful swing, he smashed his club down on one of the giant ants, attempting to completely crush the wild creature. The force of the blow shocked Mother Bear. Dust and debris exploded everywhere, covering the battlefield for a moment. When the cloud finally cleared, everyone saw that the impact had been so brutal that the ant had been split cleanly in half. After landing, Baby Bear returned to his usual small and cute size. Looking up at Mother Bear with a serious expression, he proudly told her that he was now strong enough to protect her, proving that he had truly become much more powerful. Mother Bear, Sei-June, and Giran stood behind him, watching the battlefield closely. Their eyes followed every movement, but the ants didn't seem affected at all. As if nothing had happened, they regrouped and prepared to attack again. Sei-June frowned and asked in a tense voice if Mother Bear understood what was going on. She shook her head slightly and replied in a low, serious tone that she didn't know the situation, but one thing was clear: the ants were dangerous. More of them began pouring in from all directions. Their numbers quickly grew overwhelming, spreading across the ground like a red tide. Without warning, the ants opened their jaws, gathering flames inside as they prepared to attack. Mother Bear's expression hardened. Without hesitation, she stepped forward and struck with full force, crushing several ants in a single blow. The impact shook the ground itself. Seeing her strength, Sei-June was stunned, while Kyung cheered loudly, clearly proud. Confident, she brushed her hands together and said that enemies like this didn't scare her. But the ants weren't done. One of them slipped through the chaos and tried to strike her from behind, moving silently. Before it could land a hit, Giren stepped in and smashed it apart with a single punch. Mother Bear grew more alert, realizing the ants were attacking from every direction. Giren glanced around and asked why anyone would lower their guard in a situation like this. At that moment, a group of ants suddenly appeared behind Sei-June. He panicked for a second, unable to understand how they had moved so quickly. Tightening his grip, he turned just in time to see the damage. They had already overwhelmed his companions, leaving them collapsed on the ground. Giren's expression darkened. He muttered that last time he had relied on poison to survive, but this time he would crush them all. Without wasting time, he charged forward, cutting through the ants with speed and precision. Then a notification appeared in front of Sei-June. Giren had defeated a fire ant worker, granting him experience in return. Sei-June's eyes lit up, and he shouted encouragement, telling Giren to keep going. Just then, another ant attacked from the side. Sei-June barely managed to block it in time, sparks flying from the clash. Looking closer, he realized these creatures were much stronger than the locusts they had fought before. Still, his own strength had improved. With growing confidence, he began cutting them down one by one, refusing to fall so easily. Suddenly, one of the ants launched a direct fire attack at him. The flames rushed forward at high speed, forcing him to tense up. Kyung and Mother Bear watched in alarm, expecting the worst. But nothing happened. The fire dispersed harmlessly around his body. Realizing why, Sei-June smiled in relief. The flame apple tree had given him protection against fire. Seeing this, Kyung rushed forward in anger, slamming into the ant repeatedly. Furious, he shouted that no one was allowed to harm his father. After a prolonged fight, the group managed to eliminate the swarm. One by one, the ants fell until the battlefield finally grew quiet. Later, Sei-June thanked Mother Bear sincerely, acknowledging her help. As things settled, Kyung curiously asked where all the ants were coming from. Sei-June looked around, thinking carefully. He suspected there had to be a nest nearby, and if they wanted to stop this, they would need to find and destroy it. Not long after, he and Kyung hid in the bushes, observing quietly. He pointed ahead, telling Kyung to watch closely. In the distance, 2 ants were using their flames to burn a corrupted monster. Once it was reduced completely, more ants gathered around it. Watching this, Sei-June began to understand. These ants had been feeding on corrupted monsters. That explained their numbers and their strength. Kyung suddenly grew in size, preparing to attack, but Sei-June stopped him immediately. He told him to wait. Ants always carried their food back to their nest. If they followed them, they would find it. The ants soon picked up the remains and began moving away. Sei-June and his group followed carefully from a distance. After some time, their patience paid off. They had finally found the nest. The ants carried the remains of the monster deep into the nest, forming an endless stream as they moved in perfect coordination. Watching from a distance, Sei-June narrowed his eyes and said that just as expected, their numbers were far greater than they had imagined. Standing beside him, Giren replied confidently that even with such numbers, they were still weak and could be wiped out easily. Without hesitation, the group launched their attack. Giren and Mother Bear charged forward, crushing ants under their sheer strength. With every swing of their massive limbs, dozens of ants were destroyed. Kyung was no less fierce, striking rapidly with his staff and smashing the ants' heads one after another. The battlefield quickly turned chaotic. But the ants retaliated. Several of them opened their jaws and unleashed streams of fire directly at Giren. The flames burned intensely, causing him to cry out in pain. His hands were scorched and the heat was unbearable. Seeing this, Sei-June immediately shouted a warning, telling everyone to be careful. The ants could breathe fire. Realizing the danger, Sei-June raised his hand and activated one of his abilities. Dark clouds began to gather above them, quickly covering the sky. Within moments, heavy rain poured down, drenching the battlefield. Giren opened his mouth wide, collecting the falling rainwater. Sei-June calmly explained that although he could summon thunder with enough power, this rain alone was enough to weaken the ants' flames. Once Giren had gathered enough water, he fired it out in a powerful stream, like a massive water cannon. The blast tore through the swarm, instantly wiping out large numbers of ants. A notification appeared before Sei-June, showing that Giren had defeated another fire ant worker and that he had gained experience from it. Seeing this, Sei-June smiled slightly, realizing that leveling up was within reach. He then gave a clear command, destroy the nest. Giren nodded and prepared another massive water attack. Gathering more water, he launched it toward the nest with tremendous force. The impact was powerful, but to their surprise, nothing happened. The nest remained completely intact. At first, Sei-June thought it had worked, but when he saw no damage, suspicion crept in. Then they understood why. 3 large ants stood in front of the nest, holding shields and spear-like weapons. They had blocked the entire attack. These weren't ordinary workers, they were soldier ants. Elsewhere, far from the battlefield, Kaiser lay on the ground, overwhelmed with joy. He exclaimed that his granddaughter had finally succeeded in polymorphing. At that moment, Eileen's body transformed, revealing a beautiful fusion of human and dragon. With a calm voice, she said she would meet Sei-June soon. Back at the battlefield, Sei-June and his companions suddenly realized they were surrounded. More soldier ants crawled out from the nest, forming a tight encirclement. Their armored bodies and coordinated movements made them far more dangerous than the workers. Sei-June quickly warned the others, his voice filled with urgency. Before he could react further, one of the soldier ants charged straight at him. Caught off guard, Sei-June barely had time to respond. Just as the attack was about to land, Mother Bear stepped in instantly. With a powerful strike, she sent the ant flying away, protecting him. She told him firmly to stay alert. Not far away, Queuing was struggling against another soldier ant. Its shield blocked his attacks, and its strength steadily pushed him back. Just as he began to lose ground, Giren leaped into the air and slammed down onto the ant, knocking it away. He quickly checked on Queuing, who reassured him that he was fine. However, something unexpected happened. The ant beneath Giren began to push back. With surprising strength, it raised its shield and forced Giren upward. In a sudden burst of power, it lifted him completely off the ground and threw him aside. Giren cried out as he was sent flying through the air. Watching this, Sei-June realized how dangerous these creatures were. Ants were known for their incredible strength, and these soldier ants were no exception. Before they could recover, even more soldier ants poured out of the nest, quickly filling the area. The battlefield grew overwhelming. Giren crashed to the ground nearby, while Queuing shouted that there were simply too many enemies. Sei-June's expression tightened as he asked what they should do next. At that moment, Mother Bear stepped forward, her presence firm and unwavering. Facing the swarm head-on, she declared that it was time to show them who truly ruled the western forest. Mother Bear's expression shifted completely, turning fierce and dangerous. Without hesitation, she took a strong stance and launched forward. Her claws tore through the soldier ants one after another, her overwhelming strength leaving no room for resistance. Sei-June and Queuing could only watch in shock as she dominated the battlefield. Sei-June admitted quietly that having someone like her on their side was a huge relief, while Queuing cheered loudly, proudly declaring that his mother was the strongest. With a powerful roar, Mother Bear warned the ants that they should never have dared to threaten them. But the ants quickly adapted. They formed a tight defensive wall, raising their shields together and moving in perfect coordination. Seeing this, Mother Bear stepped forward again and slammed her paw into their formation, ordering them to retreat underground. To her surprise, the attack was blocked. 2 soldier ants held their shields together and stopped her strike completely. Sei-June's eyes widened as he realized the ants had changed their tactics. At that moment, Queuing suddenly pointed toward the sky. Sei-June followed his gaze and saw the glowing blue moon rising above them. He immediately understood what was happening. The blue moon had begun. Its eerie light spread across the battlefield, covering the soldier ants. Under its influence, their bodies changed, becoming more aggressive and terrifying. But they weren't the only ones affected. Mother Bear suddenly moved with incredible speed. Before anyone could react, one of the ants lost its head in a single clean strike. She had evolved as well, empowered by the same energy. Sei-June stared in shock as her aura shifted completely. Kyung noticed it too. His mother no longer carried her usual warmth. Worried, he softly called out to her. Sei-June tried to explain that Girin was still protecting them and that Kyung was safe because of their bond, but he also understood the real problem. Without someone to stabilize her, Mother Bear had lost control. She roared loudly, steam rising from her body as her fury grew. The remaining ants hesitated, clearly frightened by her presence. Then in the next instant, she charged forward with overwhelming force. The impact wiped out every ant in her path, leaving none standing. The battlefield was cleared in a single devastating move. Afterward, she let out a victorious roar. Sei-June, sweating slightly, tried to ease the tension by patting Kyung on the back and forcing a cheerful tone. He said that his mother had completely destroyed the nest, which was definitely a good thing. Kyung smiled proudly at the praise. But when Mother Bear turned around, her expression changed again. From her perspective, she saw Sei-June touching her son. Her eyes filled with rage. Without warning, she roared and lunged toward him. Kyung called out in confusion, but she didn't stop. Seeing the danger, Girin jumped in front of Sei-June, trying to calm her down and telling her to regain control. It didn't work. With overwhelming strength, she pushed Girin aside and sent him flying just like the ants earlier. Sei-June tried to hold her back, but there was no stopping her. In desperation, he activated the flames of purification. Kyung shouted loudly, calling for his mother as the flames surrounded her completely. At first, it looked like she was being consumed. But then Sei-June noticed something strange. The flames weren't harming her at all. Realization struck him quickly. The purification flames didn't destroy, they cleansed. What they were burning away wasn't her, but the corrupted influence of the blue moon. Slowly, her violent aura began to fade. The terrifying energy disappeared, and her form returned to normal. The fierce presence was gone, replaced by her usual calm, sleepy demeanor. Her body weakened, and she began to fall. Girin caught her just in time. He carefully lifted her onto his back as she drifted into sleep. Kyung looked up anxiously, asking if his mother was okay. Sei-June nodded, relieved, and said that she was simply resting now. For a brief moment, everything seemed peaceful again. But it didn't last. From all around them, corrupted monster trees began to close in, surrounding the group completely. Kyung turned around in shock as the next threat revealed itself. Sei-June quickly realized that even though they had dealt with the ants, a far more dangerous threat had appeared. Kyung trembled as he looked around, saying there were too many enemies this time. Girin, clearly worried, tried to wake Mother Bear, telling her that this was not the moment to rest. But before she could respond, the corrupted monster trees let out eerie screeches and launched their attack. Their branches lashed through the air with terrifying speed. Sei-June tried to fight back, but the earlier battle had drained him heavily. Kyung was also exhausted, barely managing to keep himself standing. Within moments, several thick branches wrapped tightly around Girin, crushing him and making it hard to breathe. He groaned in pain as he struggled, and Sei-June shouted his name in alarm. Before he could react further, another tree seized Sei-June by the leg. It lifted him into the air and slammed him violently onto the ground. A system window flashed before his eyes, showing that his indestructible body ability had activated. Faint purification flames flickered around him as he groaned in pain. Nearby, Kyung was also captured. Multiple branches coiled around him, tightening with each second. Terrified, he cried out for his father and mother. At the same time, Sei-June himself was fully restrained, the pressure of the branches crushing his body. He coughed, barely able to breathe, realizing how dire the situation had become. A heavy thought crossed his mind. He had already used the flame of protection. There was nothing left. Maybe this was the end. He wondered if surviving this long on the 99th floor had already been a miracle. Along the way, he had found people he truly wanted to protect. And now he was about to lose everything. Hearing Kyung's desperate cries nearby, Sei-June felt a deep sense of regret. In his heart, he apologized to all of them, his eyes filling with tears. He whispered weakly that he had wanted to cook many more meals for them. Then, a voice spoke. It told him that if he wanted to cook, then he should simply do it. Confused, Sei-June forced himself to look toward the source. High in the sky, under the glow of the blue moon, Aileen was flying toward them. A blinding light suddenly spread across the battlefield. With a single, overwhelming burst of power, she released a radiant wave that pushed back all the corrupted monsters. The energy washed over the area, calming everything it touched. The violent surroundings fell silent, and one by one, everyone began to drift into a peaceful sleep. Queuing, Giran, Mother Bear, and Sei-June all became safe. Aileen descended gently and caught Sei-June in her arms. Holding him carefully, she spoke in a soft, apologetic voice, saying she was sorry for arriving so late. Nearby, the others lay scattered across the ground, completely drained. None of them had the strength to move. They had fallen into a deep, heavy sleep, the kind that only comes after surviving a battle on the edge of death. After some time, Queuing was the first to stir. His eyes slowly opened, still filled with exhaustion. He didn't move, only stared upward. In the sky, he saw Aileen floating while holding Sei-June. The sight felt almost unreal. For a moment, he wondered if he was looking at an angel. A faint smile appeared on his face, comforted by the feeling that everything would be all right. Above, Aileen's attention remained fixed on Sei-June. She gently touched his face and softly called his name. Her voice was careful, as if afraid of disturbing him. Sei-June slowly began to wake, his eyes opening slightly, still unfocused. Aileen immediately apologized again for being late, but told him that they didn't have much time. Then something strange happened. She looked down at her own hand. Her form was changing. The human appearance she had taken began to fade, parts of it shifting back into her true dragon form. Confusion crossed her face, followed by frustration. She had wanted to meet him properly like this, but that plan was falling apart. She explained that she had used too much mana earlier during the battle, and because of that, her transformation couldn't last any longer. As she realized it, tears began to form in her eyes. With surprising gentleness, Sei-June lifted his hand and wiped the tears from Aileen's face. The simple action caught her completely off guard. She hadn't realized he was awake enough to move. For a brief moment, he looked at her quietly, then in a soft voice, he told her that she was beautiful. Aileen froze. The words took a second to sink in, and when they did, her face flushed slightly. She looked as if she wanted to respond, but before she could say anything, Sei-June lost consciousness again. His body went limp in her arms. Seeing this, Aileen's tears returned. She apologized once more, her voice trembling as she explained that the power she had given him earlier had protected his body from completely collapsing. However, it had also forced him to endure all the damage instead of falling unconscious sooner. A soft light began to surround them, and her voice grew gentler, almost as if she was comforting him despite knowing he couldn't hear her. She said that even though their meeting had been brief, she was happy to finally see him face to face. Then she quietly promised that they would meet again. As she leaned closer to him, the moment lingered, and then the scene shifted to the blue moon hanging in the sky. Elsewhere, someone else was watching that same moon. Inside a prison room, Greed sat calmly with a glass of wine, casually drinking as he stared out the window. His expression carried mild irritation as he remarked that the influence of the blue moon was already fading. He noted that the Red Ribbon Kingdom had remained unaffected, thanks to the powerful barrier surrounding it. Inside the kingdom, work continued without pause. Rabbits labored endlessly while boar guards stood nearby, overseeing everything. Greed's attention shifted as he remembered the answer he had demanded earlier. He turned to look at the prisoner in the room, Gyres, the young master of the inspection bureau. With a mocking tone, Greed commented that Gyres' father didn't seem very eager to come rescue him. Hearing this, Gyres reacted immediately. Bound in chains, he shouted Greed's name in anger. Outside the castle, 2 boar guards stood watch. One of them yawned lazily, complaining that the kingdom had been peaceful for years under Greed's rule, making their job feel pointless. The other agreed, saying he would rather be sleeping. A quiet voice nearby responded that such a wish could be granted. The guards looked around in confusion until they noticed Iona standing there, her wand already raised. Without hesitation, she cast a spell, calmly telling them to sleep. A wave of magic spread instantly, draining their strength. One guard collapsed on the spot while the other panicked, shouting in alarm. Before he could react, Elka appeared behind him and struck his stomach with a powerful blow, dropping him immediately. With the guards taken care of, Elka signaled that it was safe. From nearby bushes, 3 figures emerged: Princess, Black Warrior Rabbit, and Theo. The group quickly regrouped. Theo walked up to Iona and praised her magic, clearly impressed while she smiled modestly. Princess then explained that Gyres was likely being held in the underground prison. However, they had no idea what the security inside the castle looked like. Elka agreed, suggesting they proceed carefully. Meanwhile, Black Warrior Rabbit quietly reassured Princess that he would protect her no matter what happened. His words made her blush slightly. The group then entered the castle. They moved cautiously through the hallways, observing everything around them. As Princess looked at her surroundings, her expression changed. Tears slowly formed in her eyes as she realized something. The structure of the castle was exactly the same as she remembered from her childhood. But the warmth she once felt here was gone. Black Warrior Rabbit noticed her sadness but said nothing, simply watching her quietly. Suddenly, Theo stopped walking. Something felt off. Iona immediately signaled everyone to stay silent. Elka remarked that for a place bold enough to kidnap someone as important as Gyres, the lack of visible security was strange. Iona agreed, knowing Greed's nature. He wouldn't leave things so exposed without a reason. At that moment, Black Warrior Rabbit's ears twitched sharply. Something was coming. Without warning, a spear shot down the corridor at incredible speed. The Elka barely had time to react, but Black Warrior Rabbit moved instantly, stepping forward and blocking the attack with his hammer. The impact echoed loudly, and everyone immediately prepared for battle. Iona stepped forward and demanded to know who was there. From the darkness ahead, figures began to emerge. One by one, skeletal soldiers stepped into view, their bodies made entirely of bones, each holding a long spear. The Elka muttered in surprise, wondering if they were somehow connected to a white dragon. Iona studied them carefully, then recalled something from an ancient text. These were Dragon Fang soldiers, artificial warriors created from dragon bones. Black Warrior Rabbit suggested breaking through them directly, and the Elka prepared to attack as well. But Iona stopped them. She explained that these soldiers didn't tire and were extremely difficult to destroy. Even powerful magic had little effect on them. The fact that Greed had gathered enough dragon bones to create so many of them was alarming, especially since he already possessed the white dragon seal. Understanding the danger, the Elka made a quick decision. He told the others to leave this area to him and continue forward. The suggestion shocked everyone. Theo immediately objected, saying they should retreat together, but the Elka insisted. Someone had to hold them back. Just as the Dragon Fang soldiers rushed forward, the Hedgel suddenly joined the fight, striking one of the skeletal warriors without hesitation. The Elka remarked calmly that he had expected this. The Hedgel responded simply, unable to stand by and watch. Black Warrior Rabbit tried to stay and fight as well, but the Hedgel shoved him away, sending him back toward the princess. He told him to go, reminding him that he had someone important to protect. Iona agreed and urged everyone to move. The situation had grown far more dangerous than expected, and their only option now was to reach Greed as quickly as possible. They quickly mounted a wolf and moved deeper into the castle. As they left, Theo shouted back, telling the 2 fighters not to get hurt. One of the wolves also called out, telling the Elka to stay safe. Watching them disappear, the Elka let out a quiet laugh. He spoke about how ironic it was. Once, he had served under Greed, and now he might die fighting in the same place. The Hedgel immediately dismissed that idea, saying no one had decided his fate yet. The 2 turned to face the incoming army. They prepared to hold the line. Meanwhile, the rest of the group finally reached Greed's chamber. Without hesitation, Iona blasted the door open with a fire spell, and they rushed inside, calling out his name. Inside, Greed sat calmly, looking at a painting. Hearing the door explode open, he casually spoke, telling them it was polite to knock before entering. At that exact moment, he noticed a massive fireball heading straight toward him. From the doorway, Iona responded calmly, asking if that was enough of a warning. The attack landed, and as the flames spread, an uneasy feeling filled the room. Suddenly, something cut through the smoke. A massive axe. It shot forward with overwhelming force, heading straight for Iona and the princess. Neither of them could react in time, but Black Warrior Rabbit leaped forward again, blocking the attack. The collision created a powerful explosion, shaking the room. Despite using a wooden weapon, he managed to stop the strike. Greed calmly called his weapon back, the axe flying into his hand as if summoned. He caught it and rested it on his shoulder, while a terrifying blue energy began to surround him. The atmosphere turned heavy with killing intent. His eyes glowed red, and his body was covered in dragon bone armor. In a cold voice he spoke. He called Iona rude. The princess trembled, pointing out that he was fully equipped with dragon bone armor and had an army at his disposal. Iona's expression turned serious as she admitted that this fight would not be easy. Greed looked at them with irritation and asked why they thought he had kidnapped the son of the Wandering Merchant Guild's chairman. Theo stepped forward and answered that it was to threaten Mason and gain influence within the tower. Greed's red eyes gleamed. With certainty, he said that the cunning fox had sent Iona to finish him off. Greed's voice echoed coldly through the room as he finished speaking, saying that everyone who hated him would eventually come to him on their own, and just as he expected, they had. His confidence filled the air, and for a moment, silence fell over the group. Princess Pippia shouted in alarm and rushed forward to protect Black Warrior Rabbit. But before the attack could land, Iona stepped ahead and raised her staff, casting a powerful barrier to block it. Then, everything shattered. The moment Greed's axe collided with her barrier, it broke apart instantly like glass. Iona's eyes widened in shock, unable to believe it. Thea shouted her name in panic, while the others trembled at the sight. Elka's expression changed drastically. He recognized the weapon. With urgency, he revealed that it wasn't an ordinary axe. It was a sacred relic of the Silver Wolf tribe. A relic-grade weapon known as the guillotine, one of the top 10 weapons of the Black Tower. Theo's shock quickly turned into anger. He demanded to know how Greed had obtained such a weapon, but then forced himself to focus. Right now, the only thing that mattered was defeating him. The tension in the room reached its peak, and the scene shifted. Back on the 99th floor, Sei-June slowly opened his eyes, his body still heavy with exhaustion. Before he could gather his thoughts, Batbat rushed toward him, happily shouting that he had finally woken up. Sei-June held his head and asked what had happened. Batbat explained that when the blue moon appeared, Sei-June had disappeared, but Queuing and Giran had brought him back safely. Hearing that, Sei-June immediately asked about the farm, worried something might have happened. But Batbat shook his head and said something unexpected. Instead of going to the farm, he had gone outside the tower. Sei-June froze. Batbat proudly explained that he wanted to repay his kindness, so he brought back something special. He held out an instant ramen cup with a bright smile, hoping Sei-June would like it. For a moment, Sei-June just stared. Then he shouted in shock, asking where he had gotten it. Batbat panicked and quickly apologized, explaining that he had seen other humans eating it outside, so he brought one back. But instead of being angry, Sei-June's expression changed completely. He became excited. Lifting Batbat up, he thanked him sincerely. At the same time, a thought formed in his mind. If Batbat could bring things from outside, could he take him there as well? When he asked, Batbat hesitated. He explained that it was difficult. He could only carry items he was capable of lifting, and taking a person wasn't easy. Hearing this, Sei-June recalled Batbat's former master, Scaram, and suddenly understood something. That must have been how items were brought into the tower before. Realizing this, he praised Batbat's ability, making him beam with happiness. But before they could continue, a voice called out from the distance. In the next moment, a small red bear cub rushed toward Sei-June and crashed into him. The impact made him cry out in surprise as the cub clung to him tightly, saying it had been worried. His indestructible body activated automatically to withstand the crushing hug. The little bear explained that when they were surrounded by ants, an angel had appeared and saved them. Sei-June paused, vaguely recalling a figure, though the memory felt distant and unclear. Soon after, Giran arrived, relieved to see him awake. He mentioned that he had also brought something back from the ant nest during the blue moon. When Sei-June looked, he saw a handful of colorful, glowing beans. Confused, he asked what they were. Giran simply replied that they looked tasty, so he brought them along. Sei-June couldn't help but smile. He thanked all of them, realizing how lucky he was to have companions like Bat-Bat, Giran, and the little bear. A part of him thought that if Aileen were here, she would probably know what these beans were. As if responding to that thought, a blue system window appeared. It revealed that the items were not ordinary. They were 5-color beans. At that exact moment, the atmosphere shifted again. Aileen appeared, now in her dragon form. Sei-June looked at her in shock, calling out her name, asking if she had returned. She answered quietly, her tone carrying a hint of sadness, confirming that she was back. Sei-June told her they had all been worried and asked where she had been. But Aileen didn't respond right away. Her eyes were fixed entirely on him. Aileen looked at Sei-June with a faint frown, quietly muttering that he didn't remember anything from the blue moon. For a brief moment, a memory flashed, her standing close to him in her human form, a moment that had meant something special to her. But to Sei-June, it was completely gone. Suddenly, a sharp blue window appeared in front of him with an angry message, calling him an idiot. Startled, Sei-June blinked in confusion and asked if he had done something wrong. He genuinely had no idea why Aileen seemed so upset. Not far away, Aileen sat down on the ground, clearly irritated. She thought about how much effort it had taken to use her polymorph ability and how she wouldn't be able to do it again for a long time. The frustration lingered, but Sei-June's words slowly softened her mood. He told her he was just glad she was safe and thanked her for saving everyone. He even promised to cook something delicious for her. That made her blush slightly. But before the moment could settle, a new quest window appeared in front of Sei-June. It stated that he had to prepare the most delicious food infused with blue moon energy for Aileen, the tower administrator. The reward was nothing, and failure meant death. Sei-June panicked instantly, shouting for a moment to think. Before starting, his thoughts drifted to Theo and the others. He quietly hoped they were all safe. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, the situation was still tense. Elka lay on the ground, groaning in pain as Theo rushed to his side, asking if he was all right. Yona and Princess Pipia watched anxiously. Greed stepped forward, smiling proudly as he explained that his armor nullified magic and his weapon could cut through mana itself. No matter what, he was always prepared. Then his gaze shifted toward the princess. With a sinister grin, he spoke about rebuilding the Red Ribbon Kingdom and suggested she join him. Before he could continue, a loud voice interrupted. Greed turned in shock as a figure burst through the smoke. Black Bunny charged forward, hammer in hand, his anger unmistakable. He roared, questioning how someone like Greed could even think of approaching the princess. Caught off guard by the sudden power, Greed demanded to know who he was. Black Bunny stood tall and proudly declared himself as the princess's knight. Without hesitation, he swung his hammer. The blow landed with devastating force. The ground shook, dust exploded outward, and Greed screamed in pain as the impact struck him directly. The others watched in stunned silence as Greed collapsed, struggling to move. But Black Bunny didn't stop. He leaped into the air again, raising his hammer for another strike. Panic flashed across Greed's face as he tried to stop him, but it was too late. The second blow came down even harder, and another scream echoed through the room. This time, cracks spread across Greed's dragon bone armor. The unbreakable defense began to fail. As the dust settled, Iona stepped forward calmly, her staff glowing faintly. Her expression was steady, but her voice carried a chilling resolve. She said she had changed her mind, ending him quickly was no longer enough. He would pay for everything. Greed's confidence shattered completely. Fear overtook him as he began begging, offering everything he had, his wealth, his power, even his kingdom, if they would spare him. No one answered. There was nothing left for him. Yona raised her staff and cast her final spell. Greed's last scream echoed briefly before everything fell silent. The battle was over. Far away, the scene shifted once more. Sei-June sat with a wide smile on his face, finally holding the instant ramen he had been craving for so long. As Sei-June opened the lid, a wave of hot steam rose into the air, carrying a rich and irresistible aroma. King and Bat-Bat froze for a moment, their eyes lighting up in amazement. Neither of them had ever smelled anything like it before. Queuing leaned in, sniffing repeatedly, clearly fascinated, quietly muttering about how incredible it was. Sei-June lifted the noodles with his chopsticks, his eyes filled with anticipation. He took a big bite and suddenly went silent. The flavor spread across his tongue and something deep within him stirred. A wave of emotion hit him without warning. His expression softened, and before he realized it, tears began to fall. The taste reminded him of his old world, of memories he thought he had already left behind. Seeing him cry, Queuing and Batbat panicked. Their innocent faces were filled with concern, thinking something must be wrong. But Sei-June simply smiled. With his eyes closed, he kept eating, tears still rolling down his cheeks, and softly said that it was incredibly delicious. Queuing couldn't hold back anymore and reached out eagerly, but Sei-June didn't stop. Before anyone could react, he finished the entire cup. When he showed the empty container, Queuing froze for a second, then collapsed dramatically, rolling on the ground in frustration, almost in tears. Sei-June scratched his head awkwardly, feeling a bit guilty, though it was obvious he couldn't control himself. After that, his expression changed completely. A more serious, leader-like look appeared on his face. Gently patting Batbat, he announced that it was time for special training. Using a stick, he wrote Hangul on the ground and explained the task. Batbat had to go outside and bring back items with similar writing. Batbat's eyes sparkled with excitement as he eagerly accepted the mission. As Sei-June turned, he suddenly stopped in surprise. In front of him stood Flame and the purified guardian ants. Flame, once a fire apple tree, had grown larger and stronger. Sei-June stared in shock, asking if this was the effect of the blue moon. Flame smiled proudly, showing her ability to purify others, while the small ants repeated words in innocent voices, now free from corruption. Without wasting time, Sei-June got back to work. Holding the glowing 5-colored beans, he decided to plant them, determined to make use of the blue moon's blessing. Nearby, Queuing was still sulking over the ramen, but the moment Sei-June casually mentioned sweet potatoes, everything changed. His eyes lit up instantly, and he rushed forward to hug Sei-June tightly, so tightly that Sei-June cried out in pain despite his unbreakable body. The scene shifted again. The Silver Wolf tribe's chief and his allies were locked in a desperate battle. The chief looked exhausted, fear clear on his face. Even after Greed's defeat, enemies continued to swarm them. Just when things seemed hopeless, a sharp flash cut through the battlefield. The tribe's sacred weapon, the guillotine, returned. Grabbing it, the chief's fear turned into determination. The weapon sliced through enemies effortlessly, even cutting dragon bones as if they were nothing. But something felt wrong. Despite Greed's death, the enemies were still moving. That meant someone else was controlling them from behind. Back at the main battlefield, Greed lay defeated, his body lifeless. Theo stood over him, declaring that he got what he deserved. The group celebrated briefly. They had reclaimed the Red Ribbon Kingdom's land deed. Iona held it proudly while Princess Pau Pau's eyes filled with relief. But their mission wasn't over. Theo demanded to know where Gyres was. Terrified, Greed revealed that he was locked inside the treasure vault. They quickly bound him and rushed to the vault. Standing before the massive door, Princess explained it could only be opened with the white dragon seal. Just as worry set in, Theo pulled out a golden key, saying it might work. As he turned it, the door slowly opened, releasing a blinding light. When asked where he got the key, Theo awkwardly admitted he had bought it from the Raccoon Merchant Association, leaving everyone confused. They stepped inside and called out for Gyres. Then, a deep, terrifying voice echoed from the darkness. "Who are you?" A massive figure began to emerge, horns towering, red eyes glowing, its presence overwhelming the entire space. Sei-June held a shiny blue-purple cherry tomato in his hand, turning it slightly as he examined it. A satisfied smile appeared on his face as he quietly said it was perfect. When he looked up, the entire field stretched before him, filled with crops infused with the energy of the blue moon, all fully grown and glowing faintly. Around him, tiny rabbits moved busily, harvesting with excitement. Some pushed wheelbarrows loaded with cherry tomatoes, while others happily tasted the fruits they had gathered. The whole place was full of energy. Just then, Queuing ran toward him, calling out excitedly and showing him a large bundle of blue sweet potatoes. Sei-June's eyes widened in surprise as he asked how he managed to find only those underground so easily. Queuing proudly explained that they had a unique smell, making them easy to locate. Hearing that, Sei-June patted him happily, realizing how useful that ability would be. At that moment, a blue system window appeared in front of him, informing him that he had harvested 200 crops infused with blue moon energy and that his job experience had increased significantly. Another notification followed, announcing that his job level had reached its limit and that he had advanced to B rank as a tower farmer. A soft blue light surrounded his body as he shouted in excitement. Then more messages appeared. His special item, the Saint of the Earth Patrick's straw hat, had also reached B rank, and its restrictions were removed. The hat began glowing with a golden light as its abilities were unlocked. New notifications followed, stating that the limits on blessing of the earth and growth acceleration had been lifted. Finally, he received a new skill, farmer's talent. Sitting down in amazement, Sei-June carefully read the details. The skill allowed him to gain an extra crop for every 1,000 identical harvests. He nodded, impressed, calling it a useful ability. Then he remembered his larger goal. A status window appeared, showing that he had completed nearly half of his massive harvesting quest, with just over 50,000 crops remaining. For a moment, he grew serious, acknowledging that there was still a long way to go. But instead of feeling discouraged, he smiled. Full of energy, he flexed his arms and declared that he needed to keep working harder. Queuing looked at him in surprise, noticing how motivated he suddenly seemed. Sei-June then glanced at his hand, his expression turning determined. He realized that he needed to grow even stronger. Clenching his fist, he declared that he would build his strength by eating high-quality crops. With renewed enthusiasm, he called out to Queuing, and the two of them moved forward together across the glowing fields. Suddenly, the scene shifted. On the 55th floor of the Red Ribbon Kingdom, the atmosphere felt heavy and unstable. Without warning, a deep and powerful voice echoed through the massive chamber, shaking the very walls. It demanded to know who had entered, its presence overwhelming and ancient. Yona struggled to remain standing as the pressure crushed down on her. She quickly realized that the energy felt like that of a dragon. Even Black Bunny, despite his strength, found it difficult to move under the weight of that presence. Still, he forced himself upright and boldly introduced himself. The response was immediate and filled with disdain. The voice questioned how a mere creature like him dared to speak before Kellen, the white dragon. The pressure intensified, as if an entire mountain had fallen on them. Yona raised her staff, desperately trying to create a barrier while telling everyone to escape. But before they could react, a massive dragon claw began descending from above. Then, a single command rang out. Everything stopped. Time itself seemed frozen. Yona's eyes widened in shock, unable to understand what had just happened. The dragon's voice returned, colder than before, expressing irritation at being forced to act over something so insignificant. Its frustration with everything inside the Black Tower was clear. The oppressive aura spread further, suffocating the entire space. Yona trembled, realizing this power was far beyond anything she had faced before. Then Kellen gave another order, telling them to disappear immediately. But no one could move. Black Bunny shouted in panic that his body wouldn't respond, while Princess Pau Pau pleaded desperately for the dragon to stop. And then, something unexpected happened. From behind the princess, a red ribbon-like energy emerged. It expanded rapidly, pushing back Kellen's attack and neutralizing it completely. Even Kellen was surprised. Despite only projecting a fragment of his power through the statue, he hadn't expected anyone to resist him. The tension reached its peak. Black Bunny called out in confusion, but the princess stepped forward. Her eyes were steady now. With firm determination, she declared that she would no longer be pushed around and that this land belonged to her people, the Red Ribbon Kingdom. A surge of energy burst from her body. The ribbon reacted instantly, shooting forward and wrapping tightly around the dragon's statue, binding it in place. Kellen's voice rose in anger and disbelief as he demanded to know what power she was using. Yona, watching closely, explained that the rabbit royal red ribbon, one of the Black Tower's top relics, had resonated with the land deed and awakened its true strength. Black Bunny stared in awe. Yona felt a wave of emotion as she realized how much the princess had grown. With calm resolve, Princess Pau Pau revealed the land deed and declared that she would expel Kellen from the 55th floor. For the first time, Kellen's voice showed panic. He tried to stop her, but it was too late. He was forcibly expelled, vanishing from the chamber. As the battle ended, the princess's strength gave out. She collapsed, but Black Bunny rushed forward and caught her, holding her tightly. She gave a faint smile, reassuring him that everything was finally over. At a distance, Theo and Iona watched quietly, pride visible in their expressions. The scene then returned to the 99th floor. The sky was calm, until a loud roar shattered the silence. Kaiser appeared, calling out angrily to Sei-June. He complained that Sei-June didn't even remember the effort he had made to help him meet Aileen and grumbled about not being given any Maxiali. Sei-June stood his ground. He admitted he didn't remember meeting Aileen, but firmly stated that the Maxiali belonged to him. His tone remained steady as he explained that he had always treated Kaiser generously, but that didn't mean Kaiser could take advantage of him, especially now, when he was busy farming to help Aileen recover. His calm but firm stance was enough. Kaiser immediately backed down, scratching his head awkwardly and apologizing. Sei-June softened slightly, saying he would still give him Maxiali, but Kaiser needed to understand his situation as well. Kaiser nodded obediently. The rabbits nearby watched in complete shock, whispering in awe at how Sei-June handled a dragon so easily. Wanting to make up for his behavior, Kaiser stretched out his claw and presented a glowing purple stone. He explained that it was a scale from a great black dragon and would be useful in the future. Sei-June examined it carefully and thanked him. But before things could settle, the atmosphere shifted again. The carrot altar in the field suddenly began to glow with a bright golden light. Sei-June's eyes widened as he realized something was happening. A pillar of light shot into the sky. At the same time, far away, Kellen became furious. The rabbits had forcefully summoned him. He roared angrily, demanding to know how they dared to do such a thing. Sei-June and the rabbits froze at the sight, while Kaiser immediately reacted, recognizing him. Their rivalry reignited instantly. Without hesitation, both dragons charged at each other. A violent clash erupted in the sky as two massive dragons, Kaiser and Kellen, fought fiercely, their roars shaking the air itself. Both attacked with overwhelming force, their anger clearly personal. Kaiser demanded to know why Kellen had intruded, while Kellen fired back with insults, their argument sounding more like a grudge than a battle. Below, Sei-June struggled to keep his footing as shockwaves spread across the ground. Dust and debris filled the air while the rabbits shouted in panic, telling him to get out of the way. Meanwhile, Kellen angrily complained that he hadn't been able to eat properly for a long time because of Kaiser, while Kaiser snapped back, accusing him of stealing the snacks he had saved for his 40,000th birthday. Their argument escalated even further, with Kellen furious about his broken teeth, and the clash of their energies painting the sky in red and blue light. Realizing the danger, Sei-June stepped forward despite the risk and shouted for both of them to calm down. But neither dragon listened. With no other choice, he climbed onto a large stone marked with strange symbols. His expression hardened, filled with frustration, as he openly scolded Kaiser for acting like a child. Both dragons suddenly paused when they noticed where he was standing. Kaiser recognized it immediately, the creator's sacred monument. Kellen, on the other hand, became enraged that a mere human dared to stand on something so sacred. Sei-June didn't back down. He said it was the only place left untouched by their destructive aura and warned them that if they didn't stop, they would be banished from the 99th floor. The word banished only made things worse. Kellen's eyes glowed red as he exploded with anger, unable to accept being threatened by a human. With a furious shout, he unleashed a devastating energy beam. Kaiser tried to intervene, but the attack had already been released, heading straight towards Sei-June's field. Sei-June's eyes widened in horror as he realized everything he had built was about to be destroyed. But instead of panicking, he became completely calm. A cold, dangerous resolve appeared in his eyes as he declared that it was time to prepare for banishment. At that instant, a glowing blue magic circle formed beneath Kellen. The dragon froze in shock, unable to understand what was happening. Sei-June's anger was now fully visible as he demanded to know how they dared destroy something he and his companions had worked so hard to build. System windows appeared one after another. They revealed that a dragon soul had entered the Black Tower illegally, specifically, a fragment of Kellen's soul, about 30% of it. Aileen quickly realized what it meant. That fragment was tied to a statue containing part of Kellen's essence. If banished, that portion of his soul would be erased permanently. Sei-June's administrator mark began to glow. A final prompt appeared before him. Banish Kellen, yes or no? For the first time, Kellen showed fear. He demanded to know how someone like Sei-June had such authority, while Kaiser found the situation amusing, laughing at the thought of Kellen losing part of his soul to a human. Kaiser even encouraged Sei-June to go through with it. But Sei-June remained calm. Instead of acting immediately, he gave Kellen a choice. He said he could banish him right away, but he was willing to negotiate. If Kellen promised not to harm him or his companions and agreed to provide compensation, he would let him go. After a moment of hesitation, Kellen reluctantly agreed, though not without insults. Sei-June corrected him firmly, introducing himself properly as Park Sei-June, the interim administrator of the Black Tower. A contract formed between them, sealing the agreement. Kaiser mocked Kellen afterward, but Sei-June quickly shut him down to prevent more trouble. With a tired smile, he looked over his damaged field. Even though part of it had been destroyed, everyone was safe, and that was enough. He reassured the rabbits, telling them they would eat together and then rebuild. Then, unexpectedly, he invited both dragons to join them for breakfast. Kaiser and Kellen stared at him in disbelief. Soon after, a fire was lit in the field, and a large pot of purple sweet potato soup began to boil. A system message confirmed it was ready, and Sei-June's cooking proficiency had improved slightly. Without hesitation, he filled a bowl and offered it directly to Kellen, telling him to taste it. Kaiser, standing nearby, immediately demanded roasted sweet potatoes instead. But when Sei-June said he had only made soup, Kaiser became annoyed, insisting that roasted potatoes should always be available. Sei-June calmly reminded him that if he wanted plenty of crops, he shouldn't have destroyed the field in the first place. Kaiser immediately calmed down after Sei-June's remark, scratching his head in embarrassment as he apologized, realizing he had just ruined a rare chance to enjoy more food. The atmosphere in the field slowly settled. The little rabbits happily sat together, drinking their soup, while nearby stood the statue containing Kellen's soul fragment. Even that version of Kellen looked uneasy, holding a small bowl of the purple soup and muttering to himself whether it could really be that good. The moment he took a sip, something strange happened. The soup instantly transferred to Kellen's true body, far away in the sky, where he sat in his majestic humanoid form surrounded by a vast, star-filled space. With long white hair and a flowing beard, he examined the bowl calmly before taking a spoonful. The reaction was immediate. His eyes widened, glowing red as he began devouring the soup without pause. His expression twisted with a strange mix of shock and frustration. In a low voice, he muttered that it was unbelievable. Then, unable to hold it in, he burst out loudly, shouting in frustration. He couldn't accept that someone in the Black Tower could create food this good, something so fresh and perfect. His patience snapped. Without hesitation, he lunged toward Sei-June, demanding to know if there was more. Sei-June, still standing calmly in his field, reminded him of his earlier behavior. He pointed out how shameless it was to ask for food after trying to kill him just moments ago. Still, he added that according to their contract, Kellen would receive compensation anyway, so he was free to eat as much as he wanted. But when Kellen reached the pot, it was empty. On the ground nearby, Queuing lay completely satisfied, his stomach full after finishing everything. Sei-June stared at the scene, feeling an odd sense of familiarity. Kellen let out a frustrated groan, anger and disappointment clearly visible on his face. Sei-June sighed, clearly annoyed by the childish behavior of both dragons. Raising his hand, he activated the blue energy of an administrator and warned Kellen to behave properly. If outsiders saw this, they might think Kellen was his subordinate. Hearing that, Kellen immediately backed down and began apologizing. Sei-June held his posture, a confident glint in his eyes. Then, with a calm smile, he introduced himself properly, not as a chef but as something else entirely. He declared that he was a tower farmer of the Black Tower. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Gyres, who had been imprisoned, thanked Theo for rescuing him. He explained how greed had tricked him and locked him away. When he heard what had happened outside, he was stunned. Theo proudly stated that they had not only defeated greed but had even driven away a white dragon. Gyres couldn't believe it. But Theo explained that the princess had used the red ribbon artifact to repel the dragon. Princess Pau Pau herself still looked shaken, not fully understanding what had happened, but she felt relieved knowing her kingdom was safe again. Gyres apologized for the trouble he had caused, but Theo reassured him, saying that his sincerity was more valuable than any power. He then mentioned that rewards could wait. As a merchant, he had responsibilities to fulfill first. He still had goods to deliver to the lower floors. With that, he mounted a silver wolf and departed toward the 38th floor. The others watched him leave, filled with pride. Princess Pau Pau and Iona both realized that Theo had truly proven himself as a capable wandering merchant. Black Bunny and the rest shared the same thought. Theo had become not just their best merchant, but one of the best in the entire tower. Back on the 99th floor, Sei-June returned to his work. He planted the 5-color bean seeds across the field, and system windows appeared, showing increases in his experience and proficiency. Full of energy, he declared that it was time to rebuild and started working alongside his rabbits and queuing. The field quickly came back to life as everyone worked happily together. But then, something unusual caught his attention. A poison honeybee flew nearby, behaving strangely. It buzzed in an odd way, its movements restless and unnatural. Sei-June frowned and asked what was wrong, but as he looked closer, his expression slowly changed. He had never seen a honeybee like this before. Watching it carefully, he felt a strange sense of unease. Queuing and a small white rabbit stood beside him, equally stunned by the sudden appearance. After a brief pause, Sei-June carefully asked who it was. As his eyes shifted, he noticed 2 familiar bees behind it and immediately recognized them as poison bees from the East Forest that often wandered near his farm. Before he could process the situation, one of the local poison bees stepped forward angrily and shouted that this was their territory, ordering the newcomer to leave. It complained that the East Forest bees were always causing trouble. Hearing those harsh words, the strange bee, who turned out to be their queen, lowered her head, her eyes filling with tears as she began to cry. Sei-June panicked at the sight and quickly tried to calm her, telling her not to cry. But the angry bee didn't stop and continued yelling for them to leave. Sei-June tried again to mediate, but suddenly the atmosphere changed. A loud, terrifying buzzing echoed across the sky. When Sei-June looked up, his expression froze. An entire swarm of bees was descending from above, their voices filled with rage as they demanded to know who had dared to trouble their queen. Some even shouted that they would risk their lives to attack. The sky quickly filled with their overwhelming numbers, and Sei-June grabbed his hat nervously, realizing how bad the situation had become. At that moment, the older queen bee approached and asked what was happening. Sei-June quickly explained that the East Forest bees had arrived and that things were about to turn into a full-scale fight. Hearing this, the old queen immediately called her swarm to prepare for battle. The tension reached its peak. The small rabbit trembled, even grabbing a shovel out of fear, while Queuing asked in shock if they were really about to fight. In the next moment, both sides of bees surged forward, ready to clash in midair. Sei-June could only watch helplessly, thinking that his entire field would be destroyed if this continued. Then, a furious voice thundered from above. The buzzing stopped instantly. An explosion of force scattered dust everywhere, and as it cleared, a massive white dragon appeared in the sky. Kellen glared down at the scene, clearly irritated, asking what all the noise was about. Sei-June looked up in shock, calling out to him, while Queuing muttered in confusion about why the dragon was still around. Kellen's patience snapped. He prepared to unleash a destructive beam, declaring that he would wipe out all the noisy pests. The bees trembled in fear as his power gathered. Without hesitation, Sei-June rushed forward and stood between them, spreading his arms as he shouted for him to stop. He reminded Kellen that the field had already suffered enough and that he wouldn't allow him to harm his bees as well. Kellen dismissed the concern at first, saying the noise was unbearable. But Sei-June stood firm, speaking with authority and telling him to calm down. Slowly, Kellen backed off, though his irritation remained. The bees watched in complete shock. They couldn't believe that Sei-June had just stopped a dragon. Taking advantage of the moment, Sei-June raised his voice and declared that as the middle manager of the Black Tower, he ordered everyone to get along. Kellen, the queen bee, and Queuing all stared at him as he turned what was about to become a war into peace. Gradually, the tension faded. The atmosphere in the field became calm again. The East Forest queen bee happily drank honey from a large container, clearly enjoying it, while Sei-June observed quietly. He realized that if these bees became allies, it would mean even more honey for the future. Queuing, hearing that, looked just as excited. Curious, Sei-June asked how they had come all the way from the East Forest. The queen bee's expression turned serious. She explained that their hive had been attacked by red creatures that breathed fire, and another bee added that their shells were so hard that even stingers couldn't pierce them. Hearing this, Sei-June immediately understood what they were talking about. He hurried to his storage and returned with the body of a large red insect, asking if it was the same creature. The moment the bees saw it, they panicked and prepared to attack again. Sei-June quickly stopped them and explained that it was only a dead fire ant worker. He admitted that he had thought it might be edible, but its shell was far too hard. His expression grew serious as he realized something troubling. These ants had first appeared in the southwest forest, but now they had spread all the way to the east. That meant the situation was escalating. The queen bee lowered her head sadly, saying that her hive might already be under attack. Seeing her like that, Sei-June felt a sense of responsibility. He stepped forward and gently extended his hand, telling her that they would help. The queen bee looked up in surprise, hope returning to her eyes. Sei-June smiled and reminded her of what he had said earlier. Everyone would live together. The scene shifted. Theo had arrived on the 38th floor, riding comfortably on the back of a silver wolf. He hummed to himself, enjoying the fresh air, but quickly caught himself and said they weren't here for sightseeing. He reminded the wolf that Chairman Park Sei-June had given them an important task. They needed to sell a large amount of goods. The silver wolf silently thought that Theo seemed to be enjoying himself the most. As they moved along the road, Theo suddenly noticed a large group gathered ahead. Narrowing his eyes, he let out a surprised sound and asked what was going on. As they got closer, he realized the situation immediately. A group of hunters had surrounded 3 merchants, shouting angrily. They were demanding that Oren use the auction method, insisting that people were dying and they urgently needed detox green onions. Oren, clearly nervous, kept asking them to wait. At that moment, Theo called out loudly, asking what was happening. The moment the hunters saw him, their mood changed instantly. They shouted with relief and excitement, recognizing him as the real cat merchant and their representative. Riding on the silver wolf, Theo closed his eyes proudly and asked if they had missed him that much. Nearby, a blonde hunter spotted the scarred black wolf and happily called him a giant puppy. The wolf stiffened, thinking to himself that he was not a puppy at all. Another hunter hugged the silver wolf tightly, while the wolf simply stood there silently, telling his companion to endure it. Theo then jumped down calmly. He was about to begin an auction, but the hunters immediately begged him to distribute the detox green onions first because of the poisoning crisis. Seeing their desperation, Theo paused and made a decision. He announced that he would distribute 500 detox green onions for free. The crowd exploded with excitement. People began pushing forward, trying to grab them. Seeing this chaos, Theo's expression darkened. He shouted sharply, demanding order. His tone was so firm that the entire crowd froze. In a strict voice, he ordered that the poison patients be treated first, and after that, everyone would receive their share, 5 onions per person. Among the crowd, a powerful man laughed, saying that even a cat was handling things better than humans. This man was Han Ti-Jun, leader of the Phoenix Guild and an old acquaintance of Theo. Theo greeted him warmly and asked about Dong. Ti-Jun replied that Dong had been waiting for him every day but happened to miss him this time. The situation quickly stabilized, and everyone was amazed at how efficiently Theo handled the crisis. Ti-Jun thanked him, but Theo raised a condition. He revealed a new item, sturdy blade green onions. He explained that these weren't meant for eating. Instead, they were as strong and sharp as real blades. He instructed Ti-Jun to start growing them across every available area outside the tower. Ti-Jun immediately realized that this must be Sei-June's idea, and Theo confirmed it. The hunters were shocked that such valuable items were being given away. Sei-June asked if he was serious, and Theo calmly replied that it was fine. They had more. Then his expression changed. His voice grew serious as he revealed something far more alarming. If things continued like this, their entire world would be destroyed. The words hit everyone like a shockwave. Fear spread instantly, and the hunters asked if it was really true. Theo simply nodded once and said yes. Silence followed. The realization began to sink in. Panic started to build, but Theo remained quiet. He remembered Sei-June's warning that revealing too much would only cause chaos. So instead, he told them that if they worked hard and followed instructions, they could prevent the disaster. Even without details, the seriousness of his tone was enough. Sei-June stepped forward, understanding the gravity of the situation. He immediately took charge, ordering the hunters to sell the remaining detox green onions to gather funds and to begin planting them everywhere possible. He warned them strictly not to spread rumors about the world ending and told everyone to focus on their tasks. The hunters, filled with fear but also determination, shouted in agreement and began moving. The scene shifted once again. Back on the 99th floor, Sei-June climbed over a rocky cliff, his body heavy with exhaustion. He groaned quietly, pushing himself forward despite the fatigue, knowing there was still much left to do. Sei-June grabbed onto a rock and pulled himself upward, breathing heavily as he muttered that he couldn't believe the East Forest was such a rocky wasteland. Sweat ran down his face as Garin, sitting on his head, asked if he was all right. At the same time, Garin warned him that he still had to deal with the fire ants and questioned whether he was pushing himself too far. Sei-June admitted that he was exhausted, but his voice turned firm as he said he had promised to help the poison bees of the East Forest. To him, a promise wasn't something to be broken. Hearing this, Queuing lit up with admiration and called him cool, while Sei-June simply laughed to reassure him. With encouragement from the queen bee saying they were almost there, Sei-June gathered the last of his strength and climbed over the edge. As soon as he reached the top, he dropped to one knee, breathing heavily, saying they had finally made it. After catching his breath, he looked down into the pit below and saw chaos unfolding. Thousands of fire ants had surrounded the poison bee's home. The sight made his blood boil. Turning to his companions, he steadied himself and declared that it was time to act. Queuing asked what he was planning, and Sei-June smiled, explaining that the magic cherry tomatoes he had eaten during the blue moon had awakened his inner power. As he ate one more tomato, system messages appeared rapidly before his eyes. His mana surged to level 70, breaking previous limits and upgrading his thunderstorm skill to a higher level. Feeling the power rise within him, he wasted no time. Dark clouds gathered above as he activated his skill, followed by heavy rain pouring down onto the battlefield. The fire ants began struggling under the sudden downpour. Seeing the opportunity, Sei-June clenched his fist as blue lightning sparked around his hand. With everything he had left, he shouted and unleashed a thunderbolt from the sky. The lightning struck directly into the swarm, obliterating countless ants in a single instant. Queuing jumped in excitement, praising him loudly. Sei-June gained experience from the attack, but after the strike, his body weakened. He admitted the power wasn't as strong as Yona's, but it was enough for now. However, the attack had drained all his mana. His body gave out and he lost his footing, falling from the rocks. Queuing screamed in panic, calling out to him, while Garin realized he had overused his strength. Just before hitting the ground, the poison bees rushed forward and caught him midair, gently lowering him to safety. When Sei-June woke up, still groaning, the poison bee queen stood before him and thanked him, addressing him with respect. At the same time, system messages appeared, showing that the wild poison bee queen had chosen to follow him. His beekeeping skill increased rapidly, leveling up twice. Despite his exhaustion, Sei-June smiled faintly, amused at leveling up so quickly. As he tried to stand, one of the bees suddenly warned that some ants were still alive. But when Sei-June looked closely, he realized something was different. These weren't fire ants. Hidden in the shadows were strange blue ants. Carefully, he approached and assured them he meant no harm. One of them stepped forward and revealed that they had actually defeated the remaining fire ants. The system identified them as mushroom ants, with small mushrooms growing on their heads. Sei-June looked at them in surprise, intrigued by their appearance. The ant, trembling with fear, begged for mercy and quickly plucked a glowing mushroom from its head, offering it as a gift. Sei-June hesitated, unsure if it was safe, especially since it looked like a poisonous mushroom. Before he could decide, Kyung suddenly grabbed it and ate it without hesitation. Sei-June panicked and shouted, immediately pulling out detox green onions in case it was poisonous. But Kyung just smiled brightly and said it was delicious. Everyone froze in disbelief. Encouraged by Kyung, Sei-June considered trying it himself, though he remained cautious. Deciding not to risk eating it raw, he created a small flame in his hand to cook it. The mushroom ants instantly panicked at the sight of fire, but Sei-June quickly reassured them that they were safe and that he would only use it briefly. Garin warned him again about using too much mana, but Sei-June explained that the flame actually benefited him. Once roasted, he cooled the mushroom and took a bite. His expression changed instantly. The taste was unbelievable. At first mild, but then rich and deep, it reminded him exactly of grilled pork belly. Everyone around him was stunned that a mushroom could taste like meat. Seeing their reaction, Sei-June realized he hadn't properly introduced himself. Raising his hand, where the dragon mark glowed faintly, he proudly declared that he was the intermediate administrator of the Black Tower, the Black Dragon's proxy, and a tower farmer named Park Sei-June. Then, with a bright smile, he asked the mushroom ants if they would like to work on his farm. At that moment, he knew he had found a new group of valuable allies.